podcast from CBS Sports.
High drive, center field, hit the wall, grand slam. This is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Mock draft season rolls on. Welcome into a YouTube exclusive edition of Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, February 9th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White, and we have a 12-team head-to-head points redraft mock. Recently, we did a head-to-head points dynasty mock draft. This one is going to be a redraft. How's it going, Scotty? How is the voice treating you, man?
Oh, it's not good, Frank. People have been listening all week. They've just heard it getting worse and worse every day. And you'd think at some point I'd be over the hill and it would start to get better. But that day is not today. So this is the best I'm going to be able to give you. It's going to be deeper. It's going to be more monotonous, more of a monotone than usual. I certainly can't hit the high notes. If I'm going to emote, it's going to be by going deeper like this, kind of a Chris Berman thing, on the blitz.
Scott, maybe you should turn on the voice changer that we used like last
year. Oh,
yeah,
right? Like
the one that everyone either loved or hated, depending on which one you
remember the button. Is this the button? Is this working?
No, it just sounds like it sounds like you're
right,
trying.
I don't remember. I'd have to. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done that. Sorry.
It's all good. So I figured we need a guest, someone that could step up, someone who likes to talk. So I bring in one of my old buddies, a very special guest, somebody I used to work with, someone I've actually known for many years. You can find him over at Sportsgrid and Rotowire. It is George Kurtz. How are we doing, George?
I'm one of those guys who's crying, though. After the Super Bowl on Sunday, if baseball is not back, and I don't think it's going to be back anytime soon, what am I doing for the next 6 weeks? Okay. We all make fun of spring training. Oh, pretty much you got videos of guys scratching themselves and spitting and stretching. I'll miss that. All right. I will miss that if baseball's not back anytime soon.
Yeah, we all will. Like, obviously, there's so much to gain from spring training. Seriously, like lineups and seeing prospects play and just, pitchers, seeing how healthy they are, just guys ramping up in general. I mean, by next week, it's supposed to be pitchers and catchers. So it doesn't seem like that's going to happen by some miraculous, some kind of divine intervention by next week. It's not going to happen. But before we started right here, there was a report that they're going to meet again soon, the owners and the Players Association. So we'll see what happens there. Cross your fingers. Well, good vibes. Make sure you follow George on Twitter at George Kurtz. That's Kurtz. Before we jump in, for everybody watching us live, thank you for spending your evening with us. If you haven't already, please like the video. We want to get to 100 likes by the end of the draft. Also, if you're here for the first time, welcome. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Lots of fun stuff. We basically go live every weeknight here doing our full-length podcast live here on the YouTube channel. And of course, we usually do one of these mock drafts per week as well. And, based on the sounds of things, we might have a lot of mock drafts coming up for the next couple of weeks or months. Hopefully not. This is a 12-team head-to-head points mock draft. One of each infield position, 3 outfielders, 1 utility bat, 5 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, and 5 bench spots. We're using the standard CBS points scoring system. George is picking 3rd in the draft. I'm picking 7th. And Scotty threw himself down at the end, 11th in the draft. So we're all spaced out a little bit. We'll have some fun. Scotty, you are good to get this draft up and running. And it seems like we already have someone who's on auto. What's going on here? 2nd overall. Oh, there he goes. Brandon Myers. All right. We have, a few industry folks in here as well. Micah Henry, he's drafting 1st overall. We got Raz Bedon from Razball. Brandon Myers will be drafting 2nd overall as well. If you guys can't, if you haven't noticed yet, George is wearing a Yankee jersey, and he is a fellow New Yorker like myself. So we'll be donning the Yankees throughout the course of this draft. Scott, it's your dream come true. You're surrounded by Yankee fans.
Yes. Yes. Every non-Yankees fan dream come true. Yes.
All right, and we're off to a great start here already. Mike Henry goes with Corbin Burns 1st overall. Something that you're going to see typically in a head-to-head points draft. whether it's a mock or just a draft you're playing out, is that pitching typically gets pushed up the board. Pitching does fantastic in this format, especially using the CBS points scoring system here. So, yeah, Corbin Burns goes first overall, and then second is Juan Soto. George, you are on the clock. Would you like to talk us through your pick?
I really wanted Soto. He's my first pick across the board. I was hoping he'd fall to me. I'm going to end up taking Fernando Tatis because of the talent, but I worry about Tatis. All right, he's got the shoulder subluxation. He did not get it fixed. You're not going to be able to convince me, guys, that he's not going to go on the IL at least once this season, if not twice. I know what that injury is. I had it younger myself, never had it fixed either. It's not going away. They might move him to the outfield. That will help. You don't have to dive as much in the outfield, but it's just not going away. And I am the negative Nell here where, hey, I don't think we're playing 162. I think we're going to play around 130, 125. Well, now you're talking a 10-day IL. The Brewers is 15, 20 games. That's a sixth of the season here. Concerns me more. That being said, I'm still taking them. So give me Fernando Tatis.
All right. Yeah. Fernando Tatis averaged 4 fantasy points per game on CBS Sports last year using their points scoring system. And look, he was ridiculous on a per game basis, whether he has an IL stint or not. Last year, 42 home runs, 25 steals while batting .282. The guy is absolutely ridiculous. And he's still super young. I think he's just turned 23 years old. So it's crazy just how fantastic Fernando Tatis has been so far in his career. All right, let's see what else is going on. Trey Turner goes 4th overall, and then Garrett Cole. So again, we're seeing 2 pitchers go inside of the top 5 picks here in a head-to-head points mock draft, and I am on deck. And yeah,
my number 2 player in this format is still available.
Scott, I would be perfectly fine. I would be perfectly fine with either of the top 2 hitters that are available in my rankings here, Vlad Guerrero or Jose Ramirez. Regardless, Guerrero I think is fantastic in this format. Well, really regardless of format, but he's great in a points league as well. He averaged 4 fantasy points per game last year as well. Awesome plate discipline. Doesn't strike out very much. He's going to walk. Obviously part of a just ridiculous Toronto Blue Jays lineup. So I'd be happy to have him. And of course, Jose Ramirez has been, one of the stalwarts in points leagues for years now. And let's see, Phil Panepchek. What are you doing, bud? It's the first round. We can't have an auto. Well, I'm guessing he had Bryce Harper at the top of his queue because he's not at the top of the rankings.
Yeah, I would assume so. Certainly a fine pick. I mean, apart from Juan Soto, Bryce Harper is probably the top on-base guy in the majors. I mean, I guess Mike Trout's in that category as well.
Mm-hmm.
But of course,
you got something in the chat, guys.
Yeah, he said he meant to take Walker Buehler, missed it by a second. So I guess if you want to back that up, Scotty, here we go.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll give him Buehler.
We're off to a great start here. Live draft. No big deal. NBD. All right, I'm on the clock. I'm going to take Vladimir Guerrero. Boom. Done. And there you go. Again, pitching. 3 starting pitchers going in the top 6 picks. And then I take Vladimir Guerrero. Jose Ramirez goes with the next pick to RJ White. And I think both of those are fantastic values here. George, how about you? Typically, when it comes to this format, do you push up pitchers as much as maybe other people do?
Depends on what you think other people push them up to. Do I push them up? Sure. I'm probably still not going to take top 3. Normally, I want to, if I have a top 5, top 6 pick, and at the bottom of that top 6, I'm taking a pitcher here. Maybe it's top 4. If I'm at the 3 or 4 spot, I would think about it. But in my mind, it's still Soto, Tatis. Then I'll worry about a pitcher after that.
All right. We see Mike Trout go off the board at 9th overall. I think in a Roto league, probably more of like a turn pick. End of the first, early second round pick, doesn't steal as much, but in a points league, perfectly fine with Mike Trout as a mid first round pick. I was actually talking to Scott before we started here, and I had just assumed Vlad and Jose Ramirez would be gone, and I would have taken Mike Trout if those guys were gone. So he was awesome again last year. Great plate discipline. It's a lot of bombs. And then we see Bryce Harper go off the board. And Scotty, you are up, and you have a decision to make, sir. Are you going to go with a hitter here or a starting pitcher?
Well, I'm generally going to stick with the heavy at starting pitcher approach in this format, not so much in Roto League, traditional 5x5 categories league. But the first couple rounds are where I would prefer to draft hitters even in this format, because I think they just stand out so much from the rest of the hitter crop. That being said, The next pitcher in my rankings is Max Scherzer. The next player in my rankings is Max Scherzer for this format. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and take him. I'm sure one of the hitters I like will be available with my next pick at 13th or at 14th overall.
Yeah, if you don't have a big, difference between the hitters that are available at this point, then you just want to make sure that you get one of those stud starting pitchers. I have absolutely no problem with that. So after you take Max Scherzer at the turn, we see Chris Mitchell take two outfielders, Ronald Acuna and Mookie Betts. And George, if we're talking about Ronald Acuna, if we're talking about the season maybe not starting on time, that benefits someone like Ronald Acuna, because the thinking all along was that he might not be back by until May 1st, coming back from this torn ACL. So if we actually have a delayed start to the season, that helps Ronald Acuna.
Frank, you just took one of my talking points. Okay, actually, I've written a couple of things down here, and that's exactly it. As much as I was complaining earlier about a longer season, maybe hurting someone who's injury prone like a Tatis, it also benefits someone like a Ronald Acuna coming back from injury. Now maybe you get him for 90% of the season rather than 80 or 75%. I am the negative person. I just think the owner, I've been through this before so many times with these two sides here. They don't like each other. They want to fight. I have a hard time seeing opening day start on opening day. I think the owners would be happy if we get games in by Memorial Day. Once the weather really starts to heat up. I think they'll play before that. But the owners don't care about April. It's cold here in the Northeast. People are always complaining. No one goes to the games anyway. So they want to get it in by May. I have a hard time seeing him start. I think this is good for Ronald Acuna.
All right. Yeah. 4.2 fantasy points per game last year for Ronald Acuna. So he was actually better than Fernando Tatis and Vladimir Guerrero. But of course, if the season somehow starts on time, it seems like Ronald Acuna will be missing some time. After we saw Acuna and Mookie Betts go, Scotty, with the homer pick, you go with Freddie Freeman. So you've got Max Scherzer and you got your boy Freddie Freeman, the second first baseman off the board. Did you consider maybe going starting pitcher here at the start, Scotty?
Not really. Like I said, I like the hitters you can draft in this range. I think they give you enough of an advantage over the next crop of hitters that I'd like to go ahead and seize upon. And I do think there's a very large upper middle class at starting pitcher now. It really emerged last year with the new ball being mixed in. And so the portion of the draft where I'm probably going to go heaviest at starting pitcher is like the round 3 through 6 range. I already have one in the bag now with Max Scherzer. That wasn't necessarily the ideal, but that's just how the picks worked out. So I felt like I needed to go ahead and secure one hitter with these first two picks.
All right. So after you took Freddie Freeman, Brandon Woodruff goes off the board. Jacob deGrom goes to Kayla here, and she starts her draft Mike Trout and Jacob deGrom. It is not out of the realm of possibility that she has the number one hitter and the number one starting pitcher at in a points league this upcoming season. It's just a matter of health, really, for both of those players. Bo Bichette goes to RJ White, and a little surprising because I know RJ usually targets pitchers early in this format, but better for me. I wind up getting Zach Wheeler in the second round, a workhorse. I believe he was one of 4 starting pitchers to go over 200 innings pitched last year. So I'm all about it. Love him here in this points league format, really any format, but to get him in the middle of the second in a points league, I'm all about it. Shohei Ohtani goes the pick after 19th overall. And Scott, we spoke about this when we did a recap of another points league draft that we did earlier in the offseason. And while Shohei Ohtani is like a surefire mid-first round pick in a roto league because of that like 40 homer, 20 steal potential, this is not his best format because you have to typically choose whether or not he's going to be a hitter or a pitcher in your lineup. And of course, he's just taking up that utility spot. So as a result, he's pushed down a little bit in head-to-head points league.
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, I think the difference for him with this format versus the other is what it always is, right? Stolen bases are deflated in this format. Really, they're inflated in the roto format. They're overvalued because they're just so scarce and they're necessary. But also the plate discipline. He's not a good plate discipline guy. He strikes out a lot. It makes it so it's less worth taking the risk on him needing to have that workload managed, playing that dual role. there's risk of that becoming an issue in both formats, but it's less worth that risk in this format. So I do view him more as a mid-second rounder like he was taken here.
Yep, I agree with you totally. After Shohei Ohtani goes, we see Kyle Tucker, Manny Machado. You want to make sure that you get one of those third basemen early if you can. And then, Georgie, you took Shane Bieber. Any concern over Shane Bieber this upcoming season? Last year dealt with the shoulder issue, and then when he returned, he only made 2 starts. I think it was like 5 or 6 innings total, but the velocity and the spin rates were way down for Shane Bieber. How much does that worry you entering 2022?
It worries me. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you it doesn't worry me. It does. Problem was pitching's going here. Pretty much every pitcher that's left here, they're all gonna worry me to some degree. Just no matter what degree they were, I'm worried about. He was an ace at one point. You mentioned he came back. He wasn't the same guy. It wasn't because of the injury. Was it because you can't use Gorilla Glue and everything else anymore? I don't know. I honestly don't know. We'll see what they develop in the offseason here. I'm one of those guys. I wish it's not going to be really in the new CBA, but I wish they would have gone to something that they use in Japan where the pitchers are allowed to have a little tack on the ball, where the ball is actually manufactured, a little talc. This way you can have some grip there. The hitters don't care. They just don't want to get hit in the face of the damn thing. So I would have liked to have seen that. But, yes, it does concern me in the end about Bieber. We'll find out.
Yes, we shall find out indeed. And there's a chance that they are playing with pre-tacked baseballs this upcoming season. It could be part of the new CBA. I know it was something that they experimented with, I believe, in the Olympics last year. So potentially something they could adopt here at the major league level as well. After you took Shane Bieber, we see Ozzie Albies go, and then Rafael Devers and Julio Urias go to Micah Henry. So again, we're seeing that points league pitchers being pulled up the board ever so slightly. And I believe Micah now started his draft with Corbin Burns, Julio Urias, and Rafael Devers. So gets 2 seemingly elite starting pitchers and knocks out one of the scarcest positions with third base as well with Rafael Devers. So I think that is a fine start in this format. Probably early on Corbin Burns first overall, but hey, you want your pitchers? You got to take someone there. It's either Corbin Burns or Garrett Cole for me. After Julio Urias, Pete Alonso goes off the board. Man, beat on. Maybe you were listening to Chris Towers the other day when we were doing our first base position preview, talking about this potential for a 270-plus batting average, 50 home runs for Pete Alonso. I think it's possible, but Scott, at the same time, I think this is kind of early for Pete Alonso, 26.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer taking Alonso relative to where he normally versus Pete Alonso versus Matt Olson. I prefer taking Alonso relative to where he goes as compared to Olson. But, last year Olson was 3.62 points per game in this format, and Alonso was 3.16. I think their actual most likely outcomes are closer than that. But when you got a 0.5 point per game gap between the two, I mean, it's pretty obvious which should go first. So I wouldn't take Alonso with Olson still on the board.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, part of the argument for Pete Alonso has been based on draft cost, right? So Matt Olson typically, according to ADP, is a 3rd round pick. And then Pete Alonso, someone we usually see go, in the 5th round, I think typically is where we've seen Alonso go. So it's earlier than we're used to seeing for one Pete Alonso. After he went, George takes Xander Bogaerts and then Lucas Giolito. George, did you think about maybe doubling down on starting pitcher here, considering the concern with Shane Bieber? Maybe give yourself a little bit of an insurance as your SP2.
Yeah, if Julio Urias would have left me, he would, I think, right after I took Bieber. I was debating Bieber, Urias, ended up going with Bieber. But if Urias would have been left to me, when I went again, I would have taken Urias and doubled down. I gave some thought to Giolito, but, he wasn't all that great last season. He plays in the bandbox in Chicago. So in the end, I decided to go with the hitter that I know I can rely on.
All right. After Giolito goes Jose Barrios, 29th overall, another one. I know he's better in a points league. The guy has been a quality start machine over the past 3 years. But, even in a points league, I think this is early. I think this is early for Jose Barrios. I think there's still better pitchers on the board. Maybe you talk about pulling him up to like a 4th round pick in this format, but the middle of the 3rd, I think there are some better players available. And then Aaron Judge goes 30th overall and fantastic in this format. Really, really strong plate discipline. He's going to walk a lot, high OBP, hitting at the top of one of the best lineups, hopefully, in baseball. I know they weren't. They didn't look that way last year, but hopefully a bounce back coming for the Yankees lineup. Now, I've got a decision here because 2 players that I love. You listen to the podcast, Luis Robert, I'm all about it. Typically better in a roto league, but we're talking about the middle of the 3rd round here. So I could talk myself into Luis Robert, but man, I love Sandy. I love Sandy Alcantara. And just the idea of having him and Zach Wheeler on the same pitching staff together, two guys that can give you 200+ innings pitched in a points league. Yeah, I'm going to take Sandy. So there you go. I get 2 starting pitchers. It was so tough to pass up on Luis Robert. I think the upside is massive. I think he could be a mid-first round pick this time next year. But I also think that there's only 3 outfielder spots to fill. And I think there's a bunch of outfielders that I can get later on. So I want to shore up that starting pitching. So I go Vlad with the first pick and then double down after that. Zach Wheeler and Sandy Alcantara. After I took Sandy, we see Robbie Ray, and then finally Luis Robert goes off the board. Kayla's crushing it, man. She has Mike Trout, Jacob deGrom, and Luis Robert. That is fun. I'm a fan of that. George, you mentioned if Julio Urias was there for you, you would have taken him. No consideration for Sandy Alcantara. Why is that?
I mean, I like Sandy Alcantara. I haven't gotten a couple of other teams that are in real life teams, so I don't know how many often I'll be drafting him again. Tough division he plays in. Atlanta, good team. I think the Mets are a better team than some of my friends might think they are. Philadelphia, who the hell knows about them? Washington's probably an afterthought as well here. I like it, but no, I didn't give him a lot of consideration for where I was picking. Not to take over someone like Bogarts, who's there, a hitter that I know I can rely on game in and game out. Nothing against him. He just wasn't on my radar to take at that pick. Now, granted, if he would have been there when I picked next at 4th, I would have taken him, Frank.
Yeah, and I love Bogarts in a points league too. Lots of doubles, strong plate discipline as well. And typically, you want hitters that hit in the top half of really good lineups because those lineups typically turn over more, which leads to more plate appearances, more opportunities for scoring fantasy points as well. Paul Goldschmidt goes off the board. And Scotty, you are on the clock. You have 1 pitcher and 1 hitter.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the pitcher here, Aaron Nola. It would be tempting to take Matt Olson, who I think is fallen too far here. Not only is he going here now after Olson, but also Paul Goldschmidt. Really don't understand the justification to take Goldschmidt over him in this format. Maybe in a Roto League, I could see it. You're hoping those 12 steals Goldschmidt provided last year is going to be a recurring thing for him. I don't really think it will be, but if you do hope that, I could see taking him over Olson. But in this format, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I would almost certainly take Olson if I hadn't already filled my first base spot with Freeman. So that kind of removes the temptation.
All right. So Scotty takes Aaron Nola, and then at the turn, we see Starling Marte and Francisco Lindor. So a pair of New York Mets there. And George, I typically agree with you. I think the Mets will bounce back this year. I think the lineup should be a lot better. Starling Marte seemingly leading off for that team. Marcana joins. Eduardo Escobar joins the team. And I do think Francisco Lindor is due for a bounce back here. All right, Scotty, you are back on the clock. Matt Olson's still available, but you have a first baseman. I'm going to stop talking because there's a few players that I want, and I don't want to reveal who they are.
I'm gonna interview you here, Frank, since I don't have much of a voice anyway.
Okay.
It's round 4. Who's still available in round 4?
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
It's round 4 and Salvador Perez is still available. So
right.
My rule is if it's round 4 and Salvador Perez is still available, take Salvador Perez. So I'm holding to it.
Yeah, look, I won't knock it, man. 504 fantasy points last year for Salvador Perez, the number 1 scoring catcher. He was a top 10 overall player in Roto last year as well. The next closest scoring catcher behind Salvador Perez in this format was Will Smith, 383.5. He had over 100 fantasy points less than Salvador Perez. And you want volume in this format for your hitters. I know he doesn't walk very much. He's going to strike out, but he's also going to play more than any other catcher in baseball. So might be a touch early, Scott, but it's part of the rule. He's available in the 4th round. You're drafting Salvador Perez. I'm cool with it. And Tim, I know that you are in the chat. I know that you're watching us live, and you just broke my heart, man. I would have loved to get Yordan Alvarez as my second hitter, my first outfielder here in the 4th round. I think it is fantastic value, really strong plate discipline, makes a lot of contact. And I say this about a lot of young hitters, young left-handed batters who can hit lefties. I love it.
There you go, Kayla. There you go. She continues to crush it.
Continues to crush Matt Olson. She's just scooping up all the value here. I do think she needs to focus on some insurance policies at pitcher eventually to back up Jacob deGrom. But we're talking about Matt Olson, Luis Robert, Jacob deGrom, and Mike Trout all on the same team here. And now Lance Lynn goes, and I am on the clock, and it is decision time for me. I'm looking at a few different hitters here. I'll talk you through. Austin Reilly, I think that I don't love his draft cost this year, but to get a strong third baseman at this point, I think is fine. So I'm considering him. George Springer, typically fantastic in this format. Can he stay healthy? I think that is a big question mark. Obviously, Teoscar Hernandez, I do like as well. Might have to make that adjustment. In a points league, I probably want Springer more than him. And then Charlie Morton. If I just want to lean all the way into starting pitcher and take 3 starting pitchers with my first 4 picks, I can go with Charlie Morton. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays stack. I've got Vladimir Guerrero, and now I have George Springer as my second hitter. Someone who's always just been fantastic in this format, Scotty. So middle of the 4th round. Would have loved to get Yordan Alvarez, but I think George Springer is a perfectly fine consolation prize.
Yeah, no, he's fine. He's kind of undervalued coming off the injury plague season. I feel like I probably would have shorn up the weak position there, third base with Austin Reilly. But, I can't really complain about the pick there.
Yeah, there are a few other third basemen that I'll keep my eye out on them. Let's see.
Short up. Come on.
Yeah, you're turning into me. You don't know how to speak English, guy. I mean,
yeah.
We only host a podcast. It's not like we need someone to speak English. No big deal. All right, George, we're coming up on your pick here. Let's check out George's team and see what he's working with. We just saw Cedric Mullins go off the board there. Cedric Mullins, by the way, played with Crohn's disease. He was diagnosed with Crohn's disease back in 2020, and didn't really know how his body would hold up last year, and turned out to be the only 30-30 hitter in baseball. So he's awesome. Xander Bogaerts, you have Fernando Tatis and Shane Bieber. Talk us through the thought process, Georgie. What are we looking at here with your 4th round pick?
Well, any chance of me taking a hitter has gone bye-bye because the 2 hitters I would have considered taking this round were Matt Olson. Kayla grabbed them, and then you grabbed George Springer. He was on my list as well here, guys I might take. They're gone now. I am almost certainly taking a pitcher. The guy I'm looking at right now is Peralta in Milwaukee, so hopefully I don't get sniped here. But if I do, and I didn't get sniped, so I'm going to take Freddie Peralta here. He's the next guy on my list anyway, and I'm taking a pitcher here, and I am pretty much that second pitcher I was thinking about grabbing. I might grab him next because at this point, I like my hitting, my pitching. There's more suspect than I would have liked here in my pitching, and I'm wondering if I got to get a whole bunch of good guys as I don't have one ace, just in case things do fall apart here. As far as Bieber's not that guy again. Even Peralta, good year last year. I don't really know what he's going to do again this year. Can he follow it up? Yeah, we love Woodruff, we love Burns, we love Peralta in a short series. They're all pitching well, but Peralta's the one we worry about out of that trio.
Yeah, look, the Brewers have done a fantastic job the past couple of years of developing starting pitchers with Woodruff and Corbin Burns and obviously Freddie Peralta. A lot of people excited about Aaron Ashby this upcoming season as well. Can he work his way into the rotation? We'll see as we get closer to the start of the season. After I took Springer, I mentioned Cedric Mullins went. Austin Reilly, again, third base position. You want to shore that up. Middle of the 4th round, I think that makes sense for him. Trevor Story, currently a free agent. We'll see where he winds up. I know he was linked to the Seattle Mariners at some point in the offseason. Maybe goes back to the Rockies on a 1-year deal. I've heard more whispers about that recently, like a prove-it deal, reestablish his value, maybe hit free agency again next year. George takes Freddie Peralta, then Kevin Gausman, Teoscar Hernandez, and Logan Webb. Those 2 go to Micah Henry. So now Micah has 3 starting pitchers on his team. Look, Logan Webb, I get we're buying him coming off that awesome run, looked great in the postseason. But, man, to get him as your SP3, I like that. I like that value. Wander Franco goes off the board to B-Don. Scotty, I mean, look, I think we like every draft that we do together in a head-to-head points league. I feel like we're just going to battle it out to see who can get Wander Franco in the 5th round. It's not like the same hard rule that you have with Salvador Perez, but
no.
Wander in the 5th. I love that in this format. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, this is his better format. His failure rate is going to be pretty low in this format because the plate discipline is so good that you don't necessarily need him to take that step forward in the power department like you're hoping for in a Roto League. So, yeah, I can't complain about I wouldn't be complaining about the value here if I was B Don. I am noticing.
Scott, George, do you need us to back that out for you?
Yeah, I didn't know that was my pick.
Yeah, you know what? Broadcasting.
That's what I get for listening to you.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, man. Admittedly, we've done a few of these now, so like trying to broadcast and draft and figure everything that's going on at the same time. It's
easier said than done.
It's gonna be bad for you because I'm gonna take your guy here.
No, don't do it. Don't.
I probably would have taken the guy who was just selected, and I'm gonna feel bad to do that. So I'm gonna take the other guy in the same team who was right there with them, and I'll take Charlie Morton.
No, don't do it.
Charlie Morton. Yeah, I was hoping to get him with my next pick. You were gonna take him too, Frank?
Oh yeah, if Charlie Morton I was debating him with my last pick, Scott. So if he was here in the 5th round, I mean that
I mean, the most undervalued ace. Clearly, his ADP and this is Roto ADP is like 85. So, 51 I think is more appropriate. 51 is perfectly reasonable. And of course, the value of all starting pitchers is going to be inflated in a points league anyway. Yeah, I mean, I only have 2 starting pitchers through 4 rounds. And I wish I had a third one, to be honest. I wish I had a third one because I wouldn't be sweating it so much in Roto, but in this format, with so few hitter spots to fill and not really the need to balance hitter categories, there are a lot more redundancies in the hitter ranks than there are in the pitcher ranks, and the truly high end guys are rapidly depleting here.
Man, we should have made George keep Adam Wainwright. I want Charlie Morton. Like, come on, man, this is messed up. George, that tells me that you have Adam Wainwright in the queue, though. He was at the top of your queue.
He's in. I have a lot of pitchers in the queue. Pitchers
Right.
are always what I worry about, right? Because you can find hitters anywhere. I think as Scott just said it, I can find hitters late, but pitchers is what I worry about. Those are shrinking quickly here as I look at my list here. That's why I went back-to-back pitching here. I shored that up. I'm happier now. Bieber, Peralta, Morton. I'll find my hitters. We only have 3 outfielders, so I'm not as worried about that. We can finagle, fool around with that. Pitching is just so important in this format. But that's not to say, guys, even a Roto league, first 5 picks, I would have at least 2 pitchers anyway. So here I may have gone 1 pitcher more than I normally would. And that's just the way it worked out. But I have focused more on pitching in this draft.
I want to emphasize, because we did this with the head-to-head categories draft. I think it's especially true in a points league, both because pitchers are just valued more in general and because, like I said, there's no need to balance the hitter categories. 9 hitter spots to fill. That's it. A 9-hitter lineup. So if I'm breaking rank and not taking a starting pitcher, it has to be for somebody that I know can be a genuine difference maker in the hitter ranks. I think Freddie Freeman is that. I think Salvador Perez is certainly that. He might be the single biggest difference maker at any position. But now that we're kind of into the Ketel Marte, Brian Reynolds, Brandon Lau, Nick Castellanos class of hitters, like to me that they don't distinguish themselves as much. And I'd rather have a starting pitcher who's going to do that.
After George took Charlie Morton, we saw Max Fried go, Corey Seager, Jose Altuve. I took Chris Sale, and then Jack Flaherty goes to RJ White. And I kind of feel like a hypocrite, Scott, because I wrote up Chris Sale. I wrote up Chris Sale in my Bus 1.0 article, and part of the reason was that when I wrote it, he was more like a mid-4th round pick. So the ADP is dropping a little bit now for Chris Sale, and on average, he is the 16th starting pitcher off the board. I have him closer to like SP20, SP21. So he was my top pitcher available. I feel like I'm getting a good discount on him to get him as my SP3. Not as much risk involved because, obviously I have some insurance policies ahead of him. So there's risk. There's no doubt about it. Coming back again from Tommy John surgery, the velocity was down a little bit last year, swinging strike rate down a little bit. I don't know that we're going to see Chris Sale of old, but I still think that he'll be solid. And to get him as my SP3 in the 5th round, I'm cool with that. After Chris Sale goes Jack Flaherty, Frankie Montas, and Will Smith. Scotty, I know Frankie Montas is a pitcher you like, so what are we doing
I
here?
know. I was hoping to get one of Sale or Flaherty, and if that failed to get Montas, so they all went in succession there right before my pick. I'm going to make what may turn out to be my most regrettable pick when we're looking back on this. I'm going to take Marcus Semien, who's I don't like. I consider him a bust candidate this year, but the value, 59th overall, is just too. I feel like, considering I'm not thrilled with the starting pitcher choices there, I feel like that kind of discount is too much to pass up, especially since I don't have a second base or shortstop yet. I could switch them between either, and that will open up my options later in the draft. It goes to show you why, like, even your bust picks, you shouldn't just like treat them like they're radioactive. You know, and if they come at an appropriate value, you only know so much. You can only predict so much. And I've had success over the years just going against my own bust picks. Walker Buehler last year was my savior in a couple leagues where he went a little later than he should, and I ended up taking him.
Yeah, and I know that's probably going to sound weird for people that are watching us live right now. Like, why are you guys selecting players that are on your bust list? And not all busts are created equal, Scott. I mean, some of them you might write them up and say, all right, well, I think there's true bottom out potential. I feel like you've made that known about Jazz Chisholm, right? We know that there's big upside with Jazz, but we know that there's also a big downside for Jazz Chisholm. For some busts, it's just these are players that we view as being overvalued at their current average draft position. So for me, taking Chris Sale in the middle of the 5th round as my SP3, that's later than where he's on average. So I'm okay taking a shot on him at that point. And same thing with Marcus Semien. Like, we just did our second base position preview. His ADP on Fantasy Pros is 28.7. We said, look, we're not drafting Marcus Semien in the 3rd round, but if he falls to the 5th round, 5th or 6th round, then then he becomes a player that you should target at that point. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. He's someone that I considered as well, just because this is the latest that I've seen him drafted. After you took Marcus Semien, we see Dylan Cease and Chris Bryant go at the turn. Scotty, you take Joe Musgrove, who I believe is your SP3. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was, after that Marcus Semien pick, it was 2 hitters back to back. I ended up taking the top remaining starting pitcher for myself anyway. I would have been fine with, I'm not going to name them because I actually do hope some get back to me. But there are a couple other pitchers I would have been fine taking if Chris Mitchell picking at the 5-6 turn there went pitcher instead of hitter. Yeah, I mean, I don't love Musgrove, but the final numbers were what they were, right? It was a little inconsistent in every respect, but the final numbers say he deserves to be drafted here. And, I'd rather not overthink it at this point.
And as your SP3, there's really not much risk with that. I mean, you have Scherzer, you have Aaron Nola as your 1 and your 2, and we're seeing a bit of a pitcher run here in the 6th round.
You ain't kidding.
After Musgrove goes Alek Manoah, Luis Castillo, and Yu Darvish. So certainly some risk in those last 2 starting pitchers drafted, Darvish and Luis Castillo. And I am on the clock. Let's see what I need. I don't even know. I've got 3 starting pitchers. I've got a first baseman, and I have an outfielder. I think I'm gonna shore up that 3rd base position, Scotty, and I'm gonna go with one Nolan Arenado, who I think is solid. Like, does not have maybe the greatest upside. Can he hit 260 with 30+ home runs? I think that would be perfectly adequate with the St. Louis Cardinals. So to get him at this point in the 6th round as my starting 3rd baseman, totally fine with that.
Yeah, we talked about Arenado in round 6 a lot in Roto leagues and how I like that value relative to Austin Riley in round 3.
Yep.
In this format, though, I actually prefer Alex Bregman to Arenado straight up.
Okay.
Because of that superlative plate discipline. Oh, by the way, Justin Verlander just went. That was the guy I was crossing my fingers would get back to me in round 7. I didn't think it was likely, but he does tend to fall in some drafts. Verlander.
Well, I mean, considering George selected Charlie Morton and he has Adam Wainwright in his queue, I'm assuming that you probably wanted Justin Verlander on your team, George.
No, he wasn't going to go this round. Coming back from TJ, first year can be a problem. Are any of us, by the way, worried about the fact that when baseball does start, I do not think we're going to have 6 weeks of spring training. And I'm not so sure we're going to have 4. Last time we had 3 when they had a shortened during COVID. So that can lead to pitching injuries as well, and that's going to concern me this year, especially for somebody coming back from injury, which I probably should be worried about Bieber, but he came back last season. But Verlander could be shortened. Other guys could be shortened as well. I'm a little concerned about that.
No, I think it's a good point, and it's one that we haven't really discussed yet. But if we do have a truncated spring training, then I think, especially the first month of the season, we could see smaller workloads than we're used to. Even guys that we rely on to go, 6 or 7 innings. Maybe first time around we see them go 4 or 5 innings, something like that, and then slowly work their way up. So it's a good point, and I think one that we should remember. Again, if there is some kind of shortened or delayed spring training this upcoming season.
The thing about that, though, is like I kind of feel like we got a trial run of this 2 years ago, right? With George mentioned it, the pandemic delayed season that then had a very quick ramp up in July. And, most of my concerns over that, I feel like ended up being overblown. Yeah, I mean, there were some short outings at first, but it really didn't take long for pitchers to come around. And if it is anywhere close to a full-length season, the impact of that ramp-up period will be less anyway. So, I'm not saying it's not worth thinking about at all. I'm just careful not to, I don't want to overemphasize it either.
Scott, after Micah makes his pick, I need you to pause this draft.
Okay.
We have a red alert. After he makes his pick, we need to pause this draft. Quickly, I'll catch everyone up on what is going on. After Justin Verlander goes, Jose Abreu, JT Realmuto. So the second catcher off the board. Let's pause the draft here, Scotty, real quick. After Scott, you took Salvador Perez in the 4th. JT Realmuto 2 rounds later. Trevor Rogers goes to George. Josh Hader, Liam Hendricks, the first 2 closers off the board. And then Nick Castellanos. Red alert. We have 100 people watching this video, and we have 34 likes. We've got to get those likes up. Please, we want to get to 100 likes by the end of the draft. We are in the 7th round, so we've got some time here ahead. So maybe resume the draft again, Scott. But I did want to help us out. Let's get these likes up. We want to get to 100.
Do you hear the strain on my voice? This is a labor of love right here. Please
poor
show
Scotty.
me the respect
Poor Scotty
of liking the video.
Poor Scotty is trucking through here. Poor voice and all. So help us out. Let's get those likes. So we want to get to 100 by the end of this video. All right, Nick Castellanos, the first pick of the 7th round, currently a free agent as well. We'll see where Castellanos winds up. He's been linked to the Miami Marlins, which would be absolutely dreadful. The home road splits for Castellanos last year was awesome when he played in Cincinnati. Not as good, not nearly as good on the road last season. I think if he wound up with the Phillies, that'd be a nice landing spot for Nick Castellanos. George, you are currently on the clock. I was going to say that you are on deck. Let's go back to your team and see. I know your last pick was Trevor Rogers. So you have 4 starting pitchers at this point: Morton, Bieber, Rogers, Freddie Peralta, and you have Tatis and Xander Bogaerts. Where are we going next?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a first baseman, but man, that's a dry position right now. I'll be waiting there for a while. And this seems to happen to me in every draft, by the way. There's always a position I seem to neglect, and first base just happens to be it this year. So I'm going to go for the other hot corner position at third base here, and I'm not going to name guys that aren't taken. When you took Arenado, Frank, he probably would have been my next selection at that round as well here. So I'm going to take my second choice there. And I'm going to take Alex Bregman of Houston. Can't stand him as a Yankee fan, the cheating thing and all that. But give me Alex Bregman. Fantasy over, I guess, reality.
All right. Scotty said that he would take Bregman straight up over Nolan Arenado in this format because of that fantastic plate discipline. Even last year, it was only 91 games for Bregman. I know it was a down season. It was a 777 OPS, but still had an 11% walk rate and just a 13% strikeout rate. So we need him to stay healthy, of course. But if he does that in the Astros lineup with that plate discipline, he should be a standout in this format. After Alex Bregman goes Mike Clevinger. I think that's probably the earliest I've seen Mike Clevinger go. 76th overall, in the 7th round. Another
Somebody
one.
has an infatuation.
Coming back from Tommy John surgery. So, Scott, I feel like we normally see this, right, where people lump these kind of Tommy John recoveries together. And once we see one of them go, then another one goes. Then another one goes.
Verlander feels like he's in a different class from the others just because he's like,
he should be.
He's so old and he has so little time left. How much are they going to save him, really? How much is he going to save himself?
Scott, you're talking about
he's just like immortal, You're
talking about him like he's dying. I don't know how much time he has left. Geez, man.
You know what I mean. No, I think Clevinger, Severino, Syndergaard, it's appropriate to take them all in the same range. Clevinger, well, they've all had a lot of time to recover, I guess. That's the thing. Like, none of those 4 is hurrying back 12 months after surgery. They've all had plenty of time to get better and should be ready to go from the get-go. But of course, first year back from Tommy John surgery, it's typical for teams to play it safe with those guys and curtail their innings.
Oh man, I've got a dilemma on my hands. I am on the clock here. I looked at starting pitcher. I should have done it. My man, Shane O'Mac is available for my wrestling fans out there.
Here comes the money. Here we go. Money talk. Here comes the money.
Do I take Shane O'Mac? I've got a few holes in the infield right now. Some pretty good players available. Outfield, some strong outfielders left. Some guys that I like here as well. What do I do? You know what? I got to do it, man. Stick to your guns. Get your guys. Shane McClanahan, part of Breakouts 1.0, getting him as my SP4. Some risk involved. Chris Sale and Shane McClanahan on the same fantasy roster. Might not be ideal, but I mean, the guys up top, Wheeler, Sandy, I just think they're so safe, especially in terms of, maybe you afford yourself the opportunity to take on more risk there. So McClanahan, I love the breakout potential this upcoming season with the Tampa Bay Rays. After Shane McClanahan goes Ketel Marte, Carlos Correa. Of course, I mentioned that I need some infielders, and they're starting to go. Scotty, you're on deck. Let's check in on the squad. Let's see what you got going on over here.
Well, I'm not feeling great overall, Frank. I'm not
I'm sorry,
feeling great. Yeah. I'm not even referring to my voice in this instance. Third base is looking pretty sorry now, and I still haven't filled it.
Oh, come on.
I only have 3 starting pitchers, and I'm not crazy about what's left there. But I don't want to be through 8 picks and have only 3 pitchers still.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I have to go that route in this format.
All right. Well,
and I am eyeballing somebody in particular, but I'm waiting for Tim Kanak to pick.
Tim, I know you're watching. I know you're in the chat.
Oh, he took Adam Wainwright.
He took Adam Wainwright. I don't know if he actually wants that pick. Tim, if you're listening, if you're watching,
Well,
write in the chat whether or not you want to keep that pick. Let us know. We'll back it up for you. Maybe you can.
He says he's here.
it says he's here.
Yeah, it's who he wanted.
So we want.
There's no star next to his name, so that gives it away.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, that
wasn't the auto drafter. That was Tim all the time.
All right, George. I'm sorry, you're not going to get Adam Wainwright, but sorry.
So
I'm going to take a pitcher for a little while, so I'm good.
All right.
So I'm going to take Blake Snell here, who is my top ranked pitcher. Definitely a boomer bust kind of pick. I got to a point last July where it was like, time to drop Blake Snell. There's just nothing. There are no redeeming qualities here. His ERA is over 5. He goes 4 innings every start. And it's been a couple years of that. But then he just blew up in August. Went to emphasizing that slider, really simplified his arsenal. Did the trick so many pitchers have been doing in recent years is just take your best pitch and throw it more. And it led to a bunch of 7 innings outings, a bunch of double-digit strikeout outings. And then he hurt his groin, so he didn't get to see how he would finish out the season. So I'm going to take him. And all of a sudden I have to pick again. I've got to take Kershaw and hope for the best.
Oh, all right. Scotty with the double down on starting pitchers.
Risky, but potentially very high-end pitchers.
Yeah, let's pull up this. Does that mean you have 5 pitchers, Scott?
Now I'm up to 5, yeah.
Oof.
Will all 5 really come through for me? Doubtful. Hopefully 4 will. And we'll see how I fill out the rest of my lineup.
Yeah,
because we're about to see a drop in the quality of hitters as well as the quality of the drop in the quality of pitchers that we're also on the verge of experiencing.
All right, Shane Boz goes off the board. Byron Buxton. Let's check in on outfield. I only have 1 outfielder so far, so I'm gonna have to address that position at some point. Oh, there's still some pretty solid ones available here. Let's see what position is drying up most. I need a second
First base.
Actually, George, there's a few first basemen that I really like in this format that I think you can get much later on. So I wouldn't stress it. I think you're going to be just fine, buddy. All right, second base.
What is it? What is it called? The pocket. The
profit pocket.
The profit pocket of first base. Yeah, at first
right.
base. Yes, they're all still there. That foursome.
And especially two of them that I really like in point leagues. All right, I got to stop talking and I just got to make a pick. All right. I'm going to take Whit Merrifield. And another one's got, I kind of feel like a hypocrite. Like we just did the second base preview and I'm talking about how I don't really like Whit Merrifield at his cost. His ADP is in the 3rd round. It's round 8. Yeah. I'm getting him at pick 90 here. And what I especially like about this is it affords me some versatility within the draft because I needed a second outfielder. I needed a second baseman. So depending on what I like next over my next couple of rounds, I can either keep him at second base or I could throw him over to outfield. And he's fine in this format. Like makes a lot of contact.
No, he is. In fact, I said on that second base preview, I'm more likely to draft him in points leagues than Roto. And he's a guy whose ADP is obviously going to be very different between the two formats because he really specializes in stolen bases. But round 8, he hits a lot of doubles. He doesn't strike out much. He's still a great starter in this format, and I think the value is very solid. If I hadn't taken Kershaw with my last pick, if I had gone hitter instead, it would have been Merrifield.
All right, after I took Whit Merrifield, Rhys Hoskins goes. So someone's watching. Phil is watching because he is one of the profit pocket at first base. So I'm sorry, George, you will not get Rhys Hoskins, someone who does excel in this format, but there's still another one. And I wonder if you will draft him with your next pick. Are you considering any first baseman?
Not with my next pick, no. Maybe the one after that. But I have it narrowed down to 2 guys for my next pick. And one happens to be a pitcher, even though I said I wouldn't draft one. But there's one guy staring at me that I may have to grab. And he's there. So I'm going to take Ian Anderson, actually. He's going to be my next pick of the Atlanta Braves. I just think he's too good for where he's going here. I think this guy has a chance to really spark up a notch, too. Didn't plan on taking a pitcher here, so I'm sort of going a little bit off my board. And I can guarantee you beyond guarantee that I'll be taking a hitter in, 3-4 picks from now.
All right, so Ian Anderson goes there to George. We saw Ryan Presley go as well, so another closer off the board. JD Martinez, I think that was an auto pick, so we might have to back that one out. And maybe he'll select Ian Anderson. So. All right, so yeah. With that Ian Anderson pick, whenever you make it, whether it's now or we'll back it up and we'll redo it. But that gives you 5 starting pitchers through your first 8 picks. So a lot like Scotty. You guys are leaning all in there on starting pitchers.
Yeah, he didn't want JD, by the way.
Can we have some efficient communication, guys? Tell me who you do want.
Yeah, come on. It's not like we're doing a live stream or anything here.
I'd like Guerrero, but someone took him early.
Yeah, I'll trade you him, George. If you want, we can make a swap here, right? Let's see.
Do people trade anymore? Is that a thing?
In the meantime, let's.
Does anybody trade?
All right, he wants Yelich instead.
Yelich instead.
Personally, I would have preferred JD Martinez, but it's not my team. So.
Agreed. Yeah. I would. All right, George. You give me Fernando Tatis. I'll give you Vlad and my, I don't know, like 12th round pick. What do you think?
That's a deal I'd probably I already got a third baseman, right? Yeah, that's the problem. If I didn't have a third baseman, that's a deal I would do. I don't have Guerrero that far behind Tatis, and I got to pick 3-4 rounds from now. That's a deal I would definitely do in a league if I didn't already have Bregman.
Yeah, I probably should have even offered that, but whatever. Just trying to spice up the draft.
Deal. You heard it, Scotty said it.
That means I got to go. I've got to go through with it. All right, Christian Yelich goes, Ryan Presley, and Ian Anderson to George. George, last year, Ian Anderson, I mean, he took a step back compared to the shortened season. He walks too many guys. Maybe he doesn't get enough strikeouts for as many batters as he walks. What are you expecting from Ian Anderson this upcoming season?
A better year. How about that? I think once again, I think he had some issues last year that won't happen. Well, I hope it's not going to happen this year. I think he does have at least one notch to go up, if not 2 notches to go up. So I'm a big believer in Ian Anderson. Not that he's ever going to be an ace, but I think he could be right there with Morton Freed. right there with him, where he's one of those guys you can rely on here. In starting baseball terms, I would say he has the ability to be an SP2 is what I'm looking for here. Can he get all the way there this year? I don't know, but maybe they won. He relaxes a little bit. It's not as much pressure on him. Remember, he was a top prospect coming out. He's going to be the next Nolan Ryan, next big thing here. So I think he can relax a little bit and be himself this year.
All right. Yeah, last year we saw the fastball and the changeup were great for Ian Anderson. He's just got to get that curveball back on track. And, I mean, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the curveball was a big part of Ian Anderson's scouting report when he was.
Yeah, no, and when he was a prospect, that was his standout pitch. The changeup clearly surpassed it when he was on the verge of breaking through the minors. The curveball looks good. It ends up playing more of a setup role for him, like to set up the rest of his arsenal. He just drops it in there for a called strike to keep the hitters off balance. It doesn't get a lot of swinging strikes. His strength right now is ground balls. And, so he's kind of like a poor man's Max Fried, where, I see him profiling for maybe right at a strikeout per inning, maybe a little less, but probably a low ERA because of all the ground balls. But obviously he's still young enough to get better. Certainly if he improves his control, he will. And more than anything, I need to see him get more strikeouts before I share in George's enthusiasm.
All right. After Ian Anderson goes, we see Chris Bassett, Emmanuel Clase, and Eloy Jimenez go to Micah Henry, Cody Bellinger. And like I mentioned earlier with the Tommy John recoveries, once you see one of Bellinger go, Bellinger and Yelich go, the other one's going to go. So I feel like those guys are just kind of like conjoined at the hip this upcoming season in fantasy baseball. George, you are back on the clock. You have 3 hitters and 5 starting pitchers through your first 8 picks. Where are we going next?
Yeah, I wanted Jimenez. He was my next pick. Now I wish I would have taken him and left Ian Anderson. So I'm a little disappointed here. I'm going to take an outfielder. I'm going to take Randy Arozarena of Tampa Bay. I'm not all that excited about it. He's better than the other guys have up there, and I don't want to be the Yankee fan that takes Giancarlo Stanton no matter what jersey I'm wearing.
Why is that? I mean, just not expecting him to stay healthy again?
No, well, that's obvious. But, I think the Yankees have to play him in the outfield. He seemed to be a better hitter when he was playing in the outfield there, and he's going to do that. He's going to play. I don't care if he's playing left or right. He's going to get hurt eventually. The man's actually a decent athlete. He just can't stay healthy, whether it's because he's too built, too tight, and his muscles can't take the pounding. I think the Yankees have to put him out there, though, because they need that DH slot to be able to roam it around for Judge so he can stay healthy, and several other players so they can stay healthy. But then again, what if the Yankees – what if they sign Freeman? What are you going to do with Gigi LeMahieu then? Or what if they trade for Matt Olson? There's a lot of worry with the Yankees in their lineup. I know you said earlier about the Yankees maybe having one of the best lineups. They need another left-handed bat in that lineup, and I would be much happier about that Yankee lineup. So a little diversity here. Make these managers be afraid to bring in these flame-throwing right-handers late in the game.
Oh, not anything about your analysis, George. It was great analysis, but I am pissed because Phil stole Yasmani Grandal from me, who was a standout in this format. I mentioned I want one of those top 5 or 6 catchers, and I wanted Grandal. He has to be watching because I mentioned the first base profit pocket. Then he took Rhys Hoskins, and I put Grandal on my queue, and he's watching the stream, and he steals Yasmani Grandal from me as well. I am not happy, and now I have to figure out what I want to do, and I have like 20 seconds left. So what do I want to do? I don't know. I'm
upset Jorge Polanco went. I still need to fill one of those middle infield spots. I was going to do it with him.
Can we just cancel the draft? I mean,
yeah.
Honestly. I'm
going to just take first base out.
I'm going to take JD Martinez, who actually went last
almost
round.
went around to go.
Yeah, and not the pick I wanted again, but I think he's fine. I think JD Martinez is perfectly fine, regardless of format. If you need some batting average and power in a roto league at this point, as my second outfielder in a points league with George Springer as my first, totally cool with that. So again, it afforded me that flexibility. I keep Whit Merrifield at second base, and then I take JD Martinez as an outfielder. So I have Vlad, Whit, Arenado, JD, Springer in the outfield, and I have 4 starting pitchers: Wheeler, Sale, Sandy, and Shane McClanahan. Starting pitchers starting to dry up a little bit, so I might be looking for another one soon. We'll see what happens there.
Don't you wish you had Ian Anderson now?
Potentially, yes, potentially. After JD Martinez goes, Scotty, it looks like everyone's just they're out to get you because Ranger Suarez goes off the board. Oh, you don't need a pitcher anyway. And Anthony Rendon, I don't know. Maybe you were considering him. I think you still needed a third base.
I did need a third base. It was, there are some higher priorities for me right now, but it's kind of the last chance to get a potentially high-end third baseman, and this is his better format, obviously. He's got the plate discipline thing going for him like Alex Bregman does.
I will say, Scott, your last pick, you took Clayton Kershaw as your SP5. I really thought that you were going to take Anthony Rendon there.
Well, maybe in retrospect I should have. We'll see how the rest of the draft goes.
Let's see, indeed. Yeah.
So Chris Mitchell, who's the one guy who picks in between me here, me picking 11th of 12, he's got his infield filled already. I've got 2 infielders I'm looking at to pair with Marcus Semien. So I'm going to take a starting pitcher I like a lot as my 6th starting pitcher, but I've got a fair amount of risk going on, and I'd rather overdo it than underdo it in this format. I'm going to take Pablo Lopez. Who first start was a high-end pitcher last year. It's just that he only made 20 starts. But like that, if I'm drafting a 120 inning guy, that's how I'd rather those 120 innings play out. Is in fewer starts that are more impactful, as opposed to more starts that are less impactful.
I love Pablo, Scott. I think it's just a matter of him staying healthy. He dealt with the shoulder injury last year. I believe he has not thrown more than 110 innings pitched in his major league career. So he's got to show that he can remain healthy, give us 150, 160 plus innings, something like that. But on a start-by-start basis, I think that he is going to be very valuable in fantasy baseball. So I'm about it, especially, as your SP6 guy, every time you do this, I'm like, it catches me off guard. You're taking reserve pitchers before you fill out your hitters. But it's something that you consistently do. So
in this format.
Yeah, in this format, in head-to-head points. Yep.
And I'm apparently this renowned Tim Anderson hater now. Well, I'm taking Tim Anderson here in round 10.
All right.
There you go. It was between him and Jonathan India. See, that's what that Marcus Semien pick earlier afforded me, is the chance to choose between the remaining second baseman and shortstop. Turns out I could have gone either way. And, this is Tim Anderson's lesser format and Jonathan India's better format, entirely because of walks in both cases. But I still think overall Tim Anderson's a little better in this format than India is.
And honestly, if you didn't take him, Scott, I probably would have wound up taking Tim Anderson myself. It doesn't frustrate me as much as the Grandal pick, but that's because shortstop. There's still a few guys that I'm perfectly fine if I wind up with them as my starter a little bit later on. So let's catch people up. After you took Pablo, we saw Joey Gallo and Adolis Garcia go. Chris Mitchell, I think, has 1 starting pitcher in his first 10 picks. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that turns out. You took Tim Anderson. Jonathan India goes to Tim. I think that is a fantastic pick at this point in the draft. 10th round to get Jonathan India. Raisel Iglesias, I think he's either the 4th or 5th closer off the board here in round 10. Let's see. What do I need? I need a catcher. I need a shortstop. I need another outfielder. I could use another starting pitcher. And Tyler O'Neill goes to RJ. All right, so outfield. Still got a few names here that I like. Shortstop, I'm going to wait. There's someone that I like a little bit later on. I will be very frustrated if someone else selects him. Starting pitcher, a few names I like there as well. Catcher. Interesting. Where do we go? What do you think I should do, Scott? No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm debating Wilson Contreras. I'm debating Kyle Schwarber here as my 3rd outfielder. He does walk quite a bit, helps mitigate the strikeouts. Starting pitcher, I kind of feel like these guys are all kind of similar, though I do like Sean Manaea. I'm going to go with Kyle Schwarber and see how this turns out. So I get Schwarber and JD Martinez to round out my outfield there. And Schwarber, currently a free agent, has been linked to the Colorado Rockies recently, which would just be fantastic. So I'm rooting for that. If Kyle Schwarber winds up in Coors Field, I like the guy. 300 with 40 homers. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
40. I might vote for 50.
Yeah.
I think 40 is likely no matter where he goes.
Yeah.
I think he's being undervalued.
There was a story too. I got to look more into it, Scott. Maybe you saw it, but apparently he changed something in his batting stance last year, which really helped him in like the batting average department and just in general. I mean, remember that June where he hit like 14, 15 home runs? He was ridiculous. But there was like a noticeable change that he actually made last season.
Yeah, like a switch flipped in June for him, and he missed some time with an injury during that span, but he was great after returning. 32 home runs, 399 at bats, and he was pretty awesome in 2019 as well. Disappeared during the 2020 season, like a lot of players did that season being so short. But I think Schwarber is, I actually, you don't see him go ahead of Giancarlo Stanton and Mitch Haniger often, but for me, I rank him ahead of both. And you happen to take him ahead of both in this draft.
Yeah, I have him ranked ahead of both as well, Scott. Especially in this format, 3.3 fantasy points per game last year for Kyle Schwarber. That was the same amount as Yordan Alvarez and Cedric Mullins, two outfielders that are going way, way ahead of Kyle Schwarber. After I took him, we see Jake Cronenworth go, Sean Manaea, another one you're probably watching. You steal my picks from me, how dare you. Jesse Winker goes, and then, George, you get your first relief pitcher in Edwin Diaz. George, look, we live in New York. We have access to watch the Yankees, the Mets all the time. You know that at times Edwin Diaz can be a headache.
Which is weird because the man has good stuff. I think sometimes he just throw it over the plate, right? He reminds me of these guys who's afraid to let the guys hit it for whatever reason. Sometimes I think these relievers don't realize how hard it is to hit a baseball. Throw it. I'm not saying throw the ball down the middle, but stop trying to hit corners here. Your stuff's hard enough to hit as it is. The problem is every closer now we're going to have problems with. All right, they all have issues. We're going to take Jake Chapman. You and I both know he's an issue as well here. It scares the crap out of us. I was either taking Chapman, Diaz, or my first baseman here, and I could pretty much put a whole bunch of names in a hat for first base and just pick one out and go, okay, I'll go with him. I'll take my first baseman next, and I probably won't be happy about it, but at least I'll start crying about it for the rest of the show.
And I kind of like the crying about first base, so I think maybe you should wait, George, and let's see just like how long we can go before you actually take a first baseman. After you took Edwin Diaz, we see Alberto Monteci, who this is not his format, but at pick 119, and you're getting him at a huge discount compared to his.
And I mean he's a third baseman now instead of a shortstop, which is an upgrade.
Yeah,
as weird as that sounds for longtime fantasy baseball players, I think he's probably the best third baseman left, or he was before he was taken.
Let's see who else is available. I mean, Justin Turner, still a standout in this format, Scott. I think I would prefer Turner over Monteci, but yeah, once you're talking about
close call, I mean, obviously Turner he's not in the lineup. He's not quite an everyday player anymore. And I think that may be even more true this year.
Yeah. Once we get into Monteci versus LeMahieu, I think that's perfectly fine to go with Monteci at that point. So, man, Beaton goes with Monteci and Bobby Witt together. If nothing else, it's fun. It is fun. Bobby Witt, the number one prospect in fantasy baseball, arguably. I know Julio Rodriguez is up there as well, but for fantasy purposes this year, we expect to see Bobby Witt up sooner rather than later with the Royals. All right, George, you took Edwin Diaz.
I'm not going to take a first baseman.
You can take one.
I'm not going to do it.
All right.
I'm not going to do it.
I'm pretty sure everyone has a first baseman at this point, except for
he's not eligible at second base. I may have taken a first baseman after all.
Actually, no. There's a few other people who don't have a first baseman. Maybe you should take one, George. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Jared Walsh. He'll be my first baseman.
Walsh. You had a perfect opportunity to go with somebody from the profit pocket, George, and you go with Jared Walsh, who is not one of those names. Why Jared Walsh over Joey Votto?
At this point, why anybody I take at first base? I don't want to name names of people who are listening and give it away, but I'm curious. I think I know who your prophet is at first base. I'm going to circle him right here, just so we'll talk about it later. And with Walsh, listen, no one's worried about Walsh. He's going to hit behind Ohtani, behind Trout, Rendon. He's in a perfect spot. That team should mash, so he'll be a part of that. I don't love the guy. There's just no one else to take here. I mean, LeMahieu, because he was somebody am I going to get stuck with DJ LeMahieu at first base? CJ Crone in Colorado for power? Okay, I can get that. But after that, Votto, again, is he going to do it again? And he sort of tailed off at the end of last year. And then there's the guy who I think you're talking about. So if you like one of those three guys, then it's not the guy. But there's another guy here that I think you like.
No, you mentioned him. Josh Bell just went off the board too. So
he went already. Mountcastle.
Yeah, no, Mountcastle, I'm out. I'm out on Mountcastle, George. They're pushing the fences back in Camden, and I was skeptical of the power anyway. I know Scotty is out on Ryan Mountcastle as well, so we were not looking at Mountcastle. Josh Bell goes, Aroldis Chapman. George, I agree with you 100%. I am worried to death about Aroldis Chapman.
He's about done.
He has a really good reliever. He has multiple relievers behind him that are really strong, but I think the leash is shorter now, and I think there's a chance that Jonathan Loaizaga can earn an opportunity if Aroldis Chapman continues to struggle. Man, I mentioned Wilson Contreras with my last pick, and he's still there. That's a great feeling in fantasy when you're considering a player and then he comes back to you with the next pick. But I also need a starting pitcher. So do I want to go with that? No, let's go with Wilson Contreras. I know this isn't he's not a great points league player. Plate discipline is not all that great, but to get a catcher that you feel pretty good about as your starter, one of those top 6, still wish that I had Grandal. How dare you, Phil, for stealing it from me. But yeah, Wilson Contreras in round 11. I'm totally fine with that. After Wilson Contreras goes Tyler Mahle. He was my highest ranked starting pitcher, but there's someone else that I'm looking at that I think I could get a little bit later on. All right, so Scotty, we're coming back up to you here, and you need hitters. So I'm very interested to see.
I've zeroed in on one player in particular.
Okay.
And I don't know what I'm going to do if he gets taken.
Ooh, did he just go?
No, I mean, but I do like the value of Joey Votto at this point. I mean, I love the value. I love the value of Joey Votto at this point. Only 3 first basemen were better on a per game basis in this format last year. Vladimir Guerrero, Matt Olson, and Freddie Freeman. So I would have taken Votto if he made it back to me with my next pick. So 3 picks after this one. But right now I have to take Mitch Haniger because I don't have an outfielder yet.
Okay.
And the position is about to, Mitch Haniger is the last before it gets yucky, in my opinion. So I'm kind of tilting right now over my outfield. I wish, seeing Willy Adames and Javier Baez out there still, I'm thinking maybe I should have gone with a Jesse Winker last round instead of Tim Anderson.
Right.
But I had that satisfying moment of, you see there, suckers, I can take Tim Anderson too. And it created a blind spot for me in the outfield there, where that was really my greater need.
I don't normally like when people name drop on these streams, Scotty. I mean, look, it's a mock draft. We're having fun, whatever. But for our betting community out there, I'll set the odds at minus 500 that Scott winds up with Hunter Renfroe at some point in this draft, given his outfield right now. I know that you're a big fan, Scotty. All right, after you took Mitch Haniger, Steven Matz, and Noah Syndergaard goes to Chris Mitchell. I mentioned he needed some pitching, man. I believe he has 3 starting pitchers now, and they are Dylan Cease, Steven Matz, and Noah Syndergaard. So let's see.
Good luck, Chris.
Good luck, Chris. Look, if Noah Syndergaard could bounce back to 2017 Noah Syndergaard, then that will help. But you're really going to need these hitters to put up massive points every single week, and maybe it'll work. Maybe you'll just stream some double starters. Scotty, you're up here. Luis Severino, you get the top SPARP on the board.
Yeah, well, I guess the top remaining SPARP. Got to go deeper there. Sorry. Ranger Suarez is, of course, the top SPARP in the entire player pool. Yeah, I really did not see a direction I wanted to go there. So, at least with Severino, I can hope for that huge impact, that one-of-a-kind contribution at relief pitcher that a starting pitcher eligible reliever can give you in this format that a closer can't. Considering Syndergaard was now gone and Mike Clevenger went long ago, Severino was not going to make it back to me. Mm-hmm. And, my needs right now are outfield and third base. And I just don't think anyone stands out enough. And once I picked Haniger with my last pick, I just don't think anyone stands out enough at either of those positions for me to reach for them right here. So I wouldn't say Severino was a high priority for me, but it just seemed like the most impactful remaining pick that I could make there, given my needs.
Mm-hmm. I'm debating if I want to play chicken here, Scott, at shortstop. I need a shortstop, and I need a fifth starting pitcher. So I'm debating if I want to do that. All right, CJ Crone, I think he's the last of the profit pocket. So for those who don't know, the 4 first basemen in the profit pocket that I like this year: Crone, Josh Bell, Joey Votto, and who am I missing, Scott? I'm missing
Rhys Hoskins.
Rhys Hoskins, and he went much earlier. And
I'm with you. I've made them their own tier now in my first base tiers. It's not called the profit pocket. It's called the next best things, but it might as well be the profit pocket because that's exactly what it is.
All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play chicken. It's just too late. I don't know if he's going to play again. I know he's 41 years old, but Nelson Cruz. I mean, he slowed down with Tampa. I get it, but I would still bet on him hitting 270 with 30 home runs, and with the DH coming to the National League, there's going to be more options for teams of teams for him to sign with this upcoming season. So it's just too late. It's round 12. It's pick 138. So I'm going to take the shot on Nelson Cruz, and I'm going to play a little bit of chicken and see who makes it back to me at shortstop and starting pitcher a little bit later on.
I can't criticize you for the pick, but this is something we never talk about Nelson Cruz with Nelson Cruz, and I think it's most notable in this format, head-to-head, where you need to maximize your team's output every week. Nelson Cruz, at his age, so often has a red cross next to his name going into a week. I've had him the past couple years in a points league, and I end up sitting him so often just out of an abundance of caution that I don't get all of the benefit. In a Roto league, it's different. You can risk it because if you take if there's a week where he plays only 2 games, okay, you got a whole season to make up for it. But in head-to-head like this, where you can't afford to take a hit in a single week like that, I really don't like having him. All
right. Some good notes there on Nelson Cruz. I love how Scott started all that with, I really don't want to criticize your pick, and then he goes on to criticize the pick. It's fine, Scott.
Well, it's more about criticizing. It's more about just this aspect of Nelson Cruz's profile that doesn't get talked about much. But I know from experience that it's very frustrating.
All right. After I take Nelson Cruz, we see Luis Garcia go off the board, and then Eduardo Rodriguez, one starting pitcher that I was looking at. Austin Meadows goes. Jazz Chisholm goes to George Kurtz, and then Michael Kopech goes.
Another Sparp.
Yeah. George, we did our second base preview yesterday on the podcast, and we had Jazz as one of our busts, but for where he's being drafted right now, which is just inside of the top 100 picks, and here you are getting him in round 12 at pick 142. What do you like about Jazz Chisholm?
Well, I like him better than Javier Baez, because that's really what it came down to. All right, I was debating between him and Baez. In this format, I'm not a big fan of him. Plus, I don't like taking guys who switch leagues. I do always worry that it takes them a month, 2 months, sometimes even longer before they adjust. And maybe Baez is going to be that kind of player with Detroit until next year. Plus, it's Detroit, not the greatest line. I think they're on their way, mind you, with their pitching. But I think this team is not going to be very good. Teams, if they wish, can pitch around Baez, or, hey, you should be pitching around him anyway. He's got that 11th commandment rule, thou shalt not pass without being swung at. It just strikes out too much for me. So I'm taking a shot with Chisholm. I'm not in love with the guy. I probably would agree with you that the numbers last year are going to be take a dip. The league will also get used to him. They'll find holes in his swing. He'll have to make adjustments. We'll see how he does.
All right. I did want to ask you while we have you here, and as part of our Yankee fandom on the live stream today, what are your expectations for Luis Severino this year? Because Scotty drafted him. I know he returned late in the season, made a few relief appearances. I'll actually let you make your pick, and then I'll ask you about Luis Severino. But I do want to get your thoughts on him, because I think he's kind of polarizing right now. It's been hard for me to form an opinion on Luis Severino because I love the talent that he used to show. I just don't really know what to expect this upcoming season. All right, so Javier Baez and Hyunjin Ryu go at the 12-13 turn to our buddy Micah Henry, who we had on the podcast earlier in the off season. Go and check that out on demand if you haven't already. We're coming up to Georgia's pick here, and man, I'm getting a little nervous because shortstop starting.
Oh, I got sniped.
Oh, Steven Strasburg. Yeah.
Got sniped. Good pick.
I shouldn't have taken Nelson Cruz. It was trying to get too greedy, man. Trying to get too greedy here late in the podcast. Late in the draft. I should have taken a shortstop or a pitcher, but alas, that's why we do these, right? To learn from our mistakes. Georgie, you're on the clock. You mentioned you got sniped with Steven Strasburg coming back from
sniped.
That's the biggest reaction I've heard anyone give for Strasburg this whole preseason.
I hate it when I get sniped.
Well, and I'd like to hear you talk about it more after you make your pick, because I've talked a lot about how it seems like Zach Greinke, Kyle Hendricks, Carlos Carrasco, these long-term high-end pitchers who didn't perform up to their usual standards last year, granted, but it seems like they've been completely written off. And Strasburg, I guess, falls into that group too. Now, the injury he has is, I think, particularly worrisome in his case. So I don't value him as much as those others. But I guess I'm curious to hear why you're so excited about Strasburg.
All right, the value. Definitely the value where he was going this late in the draft. He wasn't even on my starting five. He was a reserve pitcher for me. So I'd have been thrilled to get him now. Certainly much more happy than I am taking. There's nothing wrong with Michael Brantley, mind you, but I had 3-4 other outfielders I'd have been just as happy with than Brantley. In my mind, they were all the same here. So we've been the upside and the value of getting Strasburg and him not necessarily being – I don't need him to start right away for me. I would have been very happy to get him there.
Yeah, Strasburg, of course, coming back from thoracic outlet surgery, and we know that that's been a pretty tough one for starting pitchers to come back from in the past. But, as your reserve pitcher, taking a shot and see what you get at that point, especially when you already have your starting pitchers filled out there, George. So I want to get back to you and ask you your expectations for Severino this upcoming season. What do you think we get out of him as part of the Yankees rotation?
Well, last year, he was over the Tommy John, right? Then he hurt the groin. We saw that in the other video there from whatever, I forget what team he was pitching for then. So he's had a full offseason recovery. He should be back somewhat normal. The Yankees are known to baby their pitchers, right? So they're not going to ask him to throw. I'd be surprised if they want him to go more than 90 pitches in April, May, maybe in half the season before they really start to play him out. We all expect at least one extra playoff team. All right, in each league here. I think the Yankees know they're making the playoffs, so they really don't want Severino to be at his best until the second half of the season going into the playoffs. They do need him. Pitching could be an issue for the Yankees. After Cole, we don't know when Talian's returning. Right, he's got the ankle problem. He was already iffy before the lockout happened. Be ready for spring training and the start of the season. And after that, it gets a little iffy there with the Yankees pitching, Montgomery and so on. We'll see what we got. So I think they're going to baby him to the beginning. But I hope as a Yankee fan, he's back to the guy he was. But one thing that was always a worry with him is that he doesn't use his lower body. He's all arm. So the fact that he blew his elbow out, I think most of us thought it'd be more his shoulder he would blow out, is not a surprise.
Yeah. All right. So maybe a bit of a slow start for Severino and then gets built up over the course of the season and the second half of the season. Marcus Stroman was the pitcher that I really wanted. I like him in points leagues. Typically goes pretty deep into his starts. I had a little bit of a groan, a reaction there. It's just,
he was the last of a tier for me.
I'm kind of defeated at this point, Scott. I did it to myself. I mentioned I was playing chicken, took Nelson Cruz, got greedy, and now I don't know who's going to be my SP5. So we'll figure it out. But Willie Adames was the shortstop that I wanted. So waiting on that position and getting him in round 13 to fill out the rest of my starting roster. I mean, this lineup, I am in love with this lineup.
Nobody makes me groan in drafts more than RJ White.
RJ White.
No relation, by the way.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that. Probably should have asked you that a while ago, but all right.
Yeah, I feel like he just drafts off my rankings because it seems like so often the guy I have queued up, he ends up taking, in this case, Justin Turner. I was going to take the plunge there, fill my third base need. Now it looks like I'm going to have to settle for one of Matt Chapman or Yoan Moncada. I don't know. In this format, I might go DJ LeMahieu. We'll see.
Yeah, another one who we spoke up as a potential bust at his cost, but he's already way past ADP. I believe his ADP is around pick 120, and we are now in round 13, pick 155. And Scotty, you are on the clock, so we shall see. Yeah, Yoan Moncada goes off the board, so you will not have Yoan Moncada as your starting third baseman, unfortunately, Scotty.
Yeah. I'm not happy, Frank.
I'm
not
sorry.
happy with the way things are going.
I'm sorry, bud.
Well, it's not your fault.
I still feel the need to apologize.
Let's go with some upsidey outfielders here, right? Just hoping to score big.
Do it.
Because the boring ones are going to be available like on waiver wire after this draft is over. Three outfielder league. Most benches are going to be mostly starting pitchers.
Do it.
So yeah, let's do Jared Kelnick.
Yeah. Jared Kelnick, part of my Breakouts 1.0 as well. Very up and down season from last year. It was for a lot of prospects. Obviously, no minor league season in the shortened 2020. So coming back last year, shaking off some rust, I think it makes some sense. There's some red flags in the profile. I get it. He swung and missed too much. Lots of strikeouts. He got sent down. Still crushed it in AAA last year. And then when he returned, bit of an adjustment period. Really turned it on in September. So I know it's a small sample size, but hoping that he can carry over some of what he did in September, Scott, this upcoming season in 2022, and you are back on the clock.
Yeah. By the way, the last pick was Kyle Gibson. That's an interesting one. But anyway, I could either go with another high upside outfielder here, or I could take another Sparp to pair with Luis Severino. I'm going for the Sparp and Cal Quantrill, who I don't really buy what he did last year. Greatly outperformed his expected stats, xFIP, xERA, all of that. Not a big strikeout guy, but did consistently pitch deep into starts once he got a rotation spot. And, if it was halfway legitimate, that the cost here is pretty low. The fact he's relief pitcher eligible in this format obviously gives him a leg up. So round 14, you can afford to take a swing like that on a guy who could be hugely impactful if he is legit. But, there's a lot of reasons for skepticism too.
Scott has 8 pitchers on his team. I have 4. So let's see how I can round out my rotation and if I actually like it by the end of this draft. All right, Scott, you take Cal Quantrill, who, again, for those listening, you might be wondering, what is a SPARP? We keep bringing this up. That stands for starting pitcher as relief pitcher, and it's a bit of a cheat code in this format where that's exactly it. Someone who's relief pitcher eligible, but is a starting pitcher, so they give you more volume, more innings, and hopefully more fantasy points as well.
It's worth noting, Tim Kelnick just took Aaron Ashby. Aaron Ashby of the Brewers right after I took Quantrill, who is also relief pitcher eligible. I don't think he'll have a rotation spot at the start of the season, just because I don't think there's room for him. But he has a lot of upside, and if Tim holds on to him for however long it takes him to get a rotation spot, he could be another impact spark.
How about this? All 6 picks in round 14 so far have been pitchers. Kyle Gibson, Cal Quantrill, Aaron Ashby, Aaron Savale, John Means Business, and Patrick Sandoval goes to me as my SP5. In this format, I probably want Patrick Sandoval as a reserve pitcher, admittedly. So I messed up. I'll admit that. Should have probably taken Stroman or earlier on Eduardo Rodriguez, someone that I was looking at as potentially as my SP5. I do like Eduardo quite a bit. But yeah, Patrick Sandoval, also part of Breakouts 1.0. I like him. The swing and miss stuff was awesome. Can he stay healthy? He's coming back from a stress fracture in his back last year. So I think that is a pretty big question mark for one Patrick Sandoval. Adley Rutschman goes off the board, the top catcher prospect in the game. And, Scott, we spoke about Adley Rutschman recently. And I think if there is a format where you want to stash him, I think a weekly head-to-head points league is the format to do that, because your reserve players don't matter as much on a daily, on a weekly basis. I think you can afford to stash somebody. And given his plate discipline, I think that he can be a standout in this format eventually when he gets called up. So, you're going to have to double down and take another catcher earlier than you'd like to use until Adley gets called up. But I do think that this is the format that you can afford to stash him in.
I disagree.
Oh.
Obviously if you're talking daily lineups versus weekly lineups, that's a different variable. But assuming weekly lineups, I'd rather be a roto league. In this format, I mean, particularly the way we set up our head-to-head points leagues, 5-man bench, very small. And you use your bench more just to, volume is so important at starting pitcher because innings are worth points in and of themselves. Like you need to use most of those bench spots on pitchers to cycle in 2-start options, right? So if you're devoting a bench spot to stashing anybody, but especially a catcher in a league where only 12 catchers are being started, so there are always quality options on the waiver wire. Yeah, I disagree.
Well, Scott, I hate to inform you, but you will not be getting DJ LeMahieu on your team here. Just to put a bow,
serves me right.
To put a bow on that conversation, I agree. Typically, I like to use in this format 5 bench spots. I like to use 3 of them, at least 3 of them, on starting pitchers and play matchups, have guys with 2-start weeks, and just kind of shuffle those guys in and out. But I think that you can afford to use the other 2 bench spots on maybe upside hitters and kind of just wait and stash some guys and see what can happen there. After Adley Rutschman went, Tommy Edman, Mike Yastrzemski, Dylan Carlson goes to our buddy George here, Michael Conforto, Gleyber Torres, and DJ LeMahieu. So Micah doubles down on the Yankees. Matt Chapman goes. And George, you are back on the clock. So maybe tell us what you like about Dylan Carlson and whoever else you're about to draft.
Well, I'm going to take a picture here, and I'm just trying to find one that makes me throw up a little bit less in my mouth. And I'm going to take a shot on somebody. Somebody goes from a pitcher's ballpark to a from a hitter's ballpark to a pitcher's ballpark. Switches leagues, concerns me somewhat here, but I know the man has talent and at times pitched well at Coors Field. So I'm going to go with John Gray playing in the barbecue in Texas.
I like it. I am interested in John Gray finally out of Coors Field, bigger ballpark now in Globe Life Field. It's played more neutral than their previous ballpark, Globe Life Park. But yeah, now it's neutral and even favoring pitchers at times. So lots of strikeouts with John Gray. He's got to keep the walks down. But if he can do that outside of Coors Field now, I kind of like it. I like taking the upside shot there. After John Gray goes, Andrew Heaney. Look, man, I wish I could say the same thing about Andrew Heaney that I just said for John Gray. I know he's going to the Dodgers, and the Dodgers, they work their magic, and
he pitched so well for the Yankees, Frank.
Oh yeah, I mean, what comes to mind more than anything is the Field of Dreams game. I think he came in relief and just got bombed. Like every time he came in relief, he got bombed. But that one in particular, because it was such a fun game, and the Yankees make the comeback, and I'm pretty sure that Andrew Heaney, like many of his other appearances, was awful, particularly in that game in the Field of Dream games. So I will never let you live that down, Andrew Heaney. And I'm not a fan of him, even with the Dodgers. Blake Trinan goes. If the season started tomorrow, he would be the closer for the Dodgers. But the season does not start tomorrow. So we'll see if they can re-sign Kenley Jansen or maybe even bring somebody else in, trade for a Craig Kimbrell or sign somebody else. Like the thing is, Scott, we haven't got to relief pitcher yet on our position previews. Oh, crap. I'm on the clock. All right. So you talk about Blake Trinan, and I'm going to make a pick. I didn't even realize.
Yeah. Look, if he's the Dodgers closer, he's going to be great for fantasy. I think there's a lot of reason to be skeptical he's going to be the Dodgers closer because it's the Dodgers, and they could bring in literally whoever they want to close. Including bringing back Kenley Jansen. So, that's the problem with drafting closers in general when the off season's only half over, right? It got interrupted in early December and there's still so many players out there. It impacts that closer role the most. So, if we're, this is just a mock, obviously, but if we're playing for keeps, I'd be a little wary of taking Blake Trinan this early. Because I don't honestly believe he's going to be the Dodgers closer.
Yeah, well, so what I was going to say, Scott, is if they don't sign Kenley Jansen, I don't think that there's another reliever available that if they signed that guy, they would use him as the closer over Blake Trinan. I think it's only Kenley Jansen. That's the only guy that they could sign that would unseat Blake Trinan as the supposed closer as of now.
I mean, you may be right about that. There are trade possibilities, obviously.
Yep.
Josh Hader's been linked to the Dodgers for a few years now. Craig Kimbrell is going to be traded to someone, we assume.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm up now and I'm screwed because since my last pick, not only did DJ LeMahieu go, but Matt Chapman went also. Somebody took Matt Chapman as their backup third baseman.
Oh, Scott, I have the perfect pick for you.
Do you?
Here he is. Luis Arias. Let's do it, Scotty. Starting third baseman. Let's make it happen.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take Zach Greinke.
All right, I thought about taking Zach Greinke myself. You've kind of talked me into him. Like the underlying numbers are very bad, but I don't know. I mean, at this point in the draft, whatever. It's around 15. As a reserve pitcher, he would have been for me. Same thing for you.
I mean, like, there's going to be an Eduardo Escobar, Ryan McMahon, somebody like that who goes undrafted. Multiples like that who go undrafted. There's just not that many hitters drafted in this league. It'd be different if it was a roto league and and everybody, has all those hitter spots to fill. I just don't feel any urgency at this point. Like, I'm settling for a scrub at the position clearly. So, I'm just gonna keep drafting pitchers that I think have a lot of impact potential. Zach Greinke being one, and I'm gonna pair him up with Kyle Hendricks here, as I so often do. Aaron Savale's already gone, so he's somebody I look to late too as another innings eater. I like drafting Greinke and Hendricks late in every format, but especially this one, where that volume they take on is most valuable.
Scott, you know that you still need another outfielder, and right?
I know, but like the kinds that I can draft now aren't going to be any better than what's available on the waiver wire at the end of the season.
All right.
And like, I'm fine. Like, look, I'm not happy with the way this is turning out. I'd rather have this, awesome outfielder to begin the season. But it's my contention that in a 12 team, 3 outfielder format like this, you can put together an outfield off the waiver wire over the course of the season. Like, you don't have to invest a lot at that position. Only 36 outfielders are being started. A lot of the best ones aren't even on our radar yet because that's just the way it always works. So, if there's any position, obviously it was a 5 outfielder league. I couldn't be that dismissive about it, but in a 3 outfielder league, like, if you're going to dismiss any position, that's the one to dismiss.
And plus Hunter Renfroe is still available, Scott. So I'm sure, we still
of course, like, he might not be drafted.
Yeah, he might not.
And he was my starter this was the exact format of our podcast listeners league. Hunter Renfroe was one of my starters for most of the year. I had the highest scoring team. Didn't make the playoffs, but I had the highest scoring team with Renfroe in my lineup virtually every week. So, that was a league where I did pretty much build an outfield on the fly. Robbie Grossman, Hunter Renfroe, Mark Canha for a while. There are always guys that are worth using that aren't going to kill you. And if you're lucky, you might even land on a Cedric Mullins off the waiver wire.
All right. After you took Zach Greinke, we saw Trent Grisham and Joe Adelgo. So look, Trent Grisham last year, he was like a top 50, top 60 player being drafted. Now he's going at pick 180. So again, at this point, there's not really a lot of risk involved in taking the shot on Grisham. Maybe he could work his way back into being the leadoff hitter for the San Diego Padres. Joe Adell goes, and then Scotty takes Kyle Hendricks. Drew Rasmussen, another Sparp, goes to our buddy Tim. I saw in the chat somewhere Team Sparp, so he's all about it. Herman Marquez goes to RJ White. You can play him on the road. Alex Cobb, he is my second reserve pitcher, so I now have 7 starting pitchers. And look, at this point, I know Patrick Sandoval is my 5th starter. I'm basically going to rotate that spot. I've got my top 4 that I think will be in my lineup more often than not, and then I'm rotating that last spot based on matchups and whoever's pitching well at that time. And I think I want to leave every draft with at least one Giants pitcher. I think I'm just going to make that a rule of mine because they've done such a great job with pitchers recently, and all their guys go pretty late. Alex Wood is someone else that I drafted. Alex Cobb, DeSclafani goes late. Logan Webb, I still kind of like him if you can get him, in the 5th round or something like that. So I like the Giants. I want to wind up with at least one of their pitchers in my drafts. Michael Pineda goes, Tarek Skubal, Tanner Houck, and George, you take Tristan McKenzie, all of Tristan McKenzie, who's maybe 150 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, someone should buy that man a sandwich. Maybe a couple of sandwiches there. He needs to eat. By the way, that worries me somewhat over a long season because can he handle it as building up the innings goes on here? I'm over the upside guy. There's another guy I'm looking at that I might get in 3 picks anyway, and I will go back-to-back pitchers here if the person is there, and it wasn't Jordan Montgomery. It's all upside. Once again, I don't think McKenzie is going to be a number 1, but I think he does have the ability this season to maybe be a 3, which is what I really like here. He's my 7th pitcher, so my 2nd backup here. So I went with upside here. He's a good prospect. I think he needs bulk. I do. I think he needs work. And it's Cleveland, so they're not going to be all that great here. But I do like Tristan McKenzie.
And they do a fantastic job always developing their starting pitchers. And I'm a fan. He's someone that I considered with my pick. I do like him, probably more so in a categories league. I just don't know how much volume he's going to give you here. But at this point, sure, take a shot. I think that there's upside. It does a really good job limiting base runners, and the strikeouts should be really good for Tristan McKenzie as well. After he goes, we see Anthony Rizzo and Jordan Montgomery. So one current Yankee and one former, maybe one future Yankee as well. I agree with you, George. I think they wind up with a left-handed first baseman, whether it's Freeman, they trade for Matt Olson, or they bring back Anthony Rizzo. I do not think that they are entering the season with Luke Voit as their starting first baseman. I think he could be the starting first baseman for somebody in baseball. I don't think it will be the Yankees.
The problem is he's a trash can at first base. All right. Well, he is. He can't play first base. He cannot. Yeah. He's a goaltender there. He may knock it down for you, but that's about it. And he's got that weird throw where he throws it underhand at the second. It's like, it just drives me insane every time I see him there. He can hit. And over a full season, I would think that he would put up some decent numbers here, but they need a left-hander to balance out that lineup. I don't think it'll be Rizzo because I think he wants a 3-4 year deal, and the Yankees aren't going to commit to that, not for the money he wants there. I would love Olsen, but that's going to cost you a bunch of top prospects here. Freeman, if the Braves screw it up and they don't re-sign Freeman, which I think would be a huge mistake, the Yankees, it's just money. Hal, let's open up the checkbook, buddy. Let's open it up and get Freeman in there.
All right, George, you're on the clock. I want to make sure you know so you don't time out.
I did know here. Well, my guy is still there. So I'm gonna grab the other Cleveland Indian pitcher that's still left, and I'm gonna take Zach Plesac. Zach
Plesac, man. I have a strict no Zach Plesac rule this year, George. That guy burned me a bunch last year. I'm not doing I'm out on Zach Plesac. He broke his hand taking his shirt off. Oh God.
How do you do that? That's a lie. That's such a lie. I broke my hand taking my shirt off.
I mean, he probably punched something because he was
pitching
exactly
aggressively. All right. That was.
I don't care how aggressive you are. How are you breaking your hand taking your shirt off?
I just want to know what he was doing.
He broke it doing something else, and then that's when he felt it. BS.
Yeah.
Playing video games like Jesus Luzardo.
Oh, Jesus Luzardo. Yeah, another one who I am interested in at the cost. He's still available, so we'll see who winds up selecting Jesus Luzardo. A few other picks. What else is going on here? Josiah Gray, someone else who I think has a lot of swing and miss ability, has to limit the walks, has to limit the home runs. Those are just huge keys for Josiah Gray. Alex Verdugo, it's really late. I know he doesn't have a ton of upside, but hitting near the top of a Red Sox lineup, he's going to hit some doubles. He's going to walk quite a bit. I think if you're going to draft him, points league is probably the right way to go with Alex Verdugo. Zach Plesac goes to George. Then we see Will Myers go off the board. Kyle Lewis, Giovanni Gallegos. Oh, look at that. I'm on the clock again. So I don't have a relief pitcher yet. Let's see what's going on over here. All right. This isn't really great. Yeah, I'm just going to wait at this point. Whatever. I'm going to take Carlos Carrasco. And,
that was the other guy I was thinking.
Yeah, let's just see how many innings we can get out of Carlos Carrasco. I'm giving him a pass for last year. He tore the hamstring. Elbow was messed up. He had surgery in the offseason to clean up the elbow. I think there was a bone fragment or something removed from the elbow there. So if he can come anywhere close to the pitcher that we saw in 2019 when he was the comeback player of the year or the short
his entire career, that's what that's what really confuses me about the dismissal of him and the two guys I just took, Zach Greinke and Kyle Hendricks. Like, we all penciled them in as top 25, if not top 15 pitchers for at least the last half decade, right? And they had 1 year where things go wrong, and it's like, okay, they're not even worth drafting. They're going outside the top 250 on average. None of them showed like obvious skill decline. The numbers weren't great, but it's not like, oh, their velocity was way down or something, that would really raise a red flag. I can't say for sure they're going to rebound, but normally we give guys with that kind of track record more credit than that coming off a down season. And so, I love taking all three of them late in drafts like this.
Yeah, and I get them as my SP8. So again, I'm going to be cycling through that fifth starter spot in my lineup based on matchups. So got some Giants guys here on the bench. I've got Carrasco and Patrick Sandoval, who has some upside. So slowly coming around. I really like this team. I like the way it turned out. Scott, this is the first team that I've drafted on one of these live streams that I actually really like. So shout out to me, I guess. I'm just giving myself a bunch of credit. After I took Carrasco, Casey Mize goes. Alex Kirilloff, who is one of Scotty's breakout candidates this year. Spencer Torkelson, one of the top prospects in the game. Scotty selects Marcell Ozuna. Then we see Jesus Luzardo and Corey Kluber go at the 17-18 turn. And at this point in the draft, Scotty, we're going to talk.
It had to be done.
Oh, geez. We're going to talk about it. But
sorry, Frank. I feel like I disappointed you.
No. It's just the combination of players that you selected together. I don't want to laugh about it. It's obviously very serious. But Jesus Luzardo and Corey Kluber, I keep trying to get this out. I like those picks at this point. Round 17, round 18. I do think that there is some upside with both those picks. Now, we've got some talking to do, Scotty. So maybe drink something, get that voice ready to go. But obviously Marcell Ozuna dealt with his domestic violence situation last year, and he served a 20-game retroactive suspension. And typically it's tough to talk about these situations. And same thing could be said for Trevor Bauer, who was recently in the news, and he's been cleared of
criminal prosecution.
Criminal prosecution. Thank you, Scott. So he's been cleared of that in Los Angeles. The MLB, the league could still, issue something against him, a suspension. And obviously there's just like, if you don't want to draft these guys because you just don't like them as humans, I will not stop you from doing that. That's fine. But yeah, Scott, look, like Trevor Bauer's in the news, and I think from a fantasy perspective, we've, got to mention him. We got to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like for Marcell Ozuna, and these are, there are different circumstances for both of these guys. I don't know that it's apples to apples, but it sounds like Brian Snitker in an interview recently said he's expecting Ozuna to be part of the lineup this year. Like, it sounds like he's going to be back for the Braves, almost certainly. There's a chance they could trade him, I guess, but you got to figure the return would be diminished if they did that. So I moved him up in my rankings recently with the expectation that he's going to be part of that lineup. And, 2 years ago, he was the number one outfielder in fantasy. So especially given my outfield needs, I'll take the upside now. Trevor Bauer, of course, has a ton of upside himself. Now, I think it's less clear, both because there's still the chance of an MLB suspension and just, there aren't as many indications that he's going to be welcomed back to the Dodgers as there are frozen with the Braves. So, I'm not as confident he's going to play a role, but obviously the upside at this point, I think it makes it worth the pick. As for whether or not, you want him on your fantasy team, that's not for me to say for you personally, but my thinking is, like, even if I, don't like him or whatever, him being on my fantasy team does not reward him in any way. It just punishes me leaving him off my fantasy team. It's not like Bauer gets anything for being on my fantasy team. So, like, just looking at it logically, that's how I tend to look at these things. And I'm not going to prevent him from being on my team.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic. no matter what way you want to look at it, and rightfully so. So look, again, if you don't want to draft Marcell Ozuna or Trevor Bauer for various reasons, that is up to you solely. But yeah, Scotty broke it down very well for both guys this upcoming season. After Trevor Bauer goes, Jorge Soler, Tony Gonsolin, Lourdes Gurriel. I select Craig Kimbrell. He is my first relief pitcher. I do think that he'll be traded and wind up as the closer for somebody, Phillies, Padres, Dodgers. I think he'll wind up with one of those teams. Luis Arias goes, someone who Chris and I do like quite a bit. Marco Gonzalez, James Caprillion, George, you select Enrique Hernandez, also known as Kike Hernandez. And then Sixto Sanchez goes off the board. Enrique Hernandez, George, especially in this format, if he's leading off for the Red Sox, he should see a ton of plate appearances this season.
Yeah, listen, I don't think anybody can expect him to play anywhere near what he did in the playoffs last year, which is, the man was on fire, right? Was playing absolutely great here. But he solves two problems for me. He's a reserve player, and he gets a middle infielder and an outfield eligibility. So it covers me somewhat there. And let's face it, at this point, there's just not much else I'm looking for here. I will not take a catcher until the last pick in the draft because I hate the position. So I just do. I
don't blame you. There are a couple I'd make an exception for, like Salvador Perez, but like once you get to a certain point at this position, I agree. Just wait till the very end.
I love Sal Perez. I'll never have him on my team, though, because I'm not taking him in the fourth round. I'm just not doing it. Sal Perez is sort of a different cat, by the way, because he does stay healthy, but they always rest one day a week. Perez never does, but they always rest one day a week. They get hit with balls, runners, the umpire may hit him every now and then, bats, everything else. It's a rough position. They got to squat 10 million times during the heat. It's a rough position. When I say I hate catches, I don't hate the men. I just hate the position. Too hard to play here. So no, there'll be no catcher for me. Never is. I don't even have to two. You start two, you start three. And by the way, if you're starting two, just torture me.
Which is typically most roto formats. So, all right, you double down on another hitter here, Ke'Bryan Hayes. And last year, popular breakout candidate for a lot of people. He was, we got our Players We Love podcast coming up soon. Last year, Scott's player that he loved was Ke'Bryan Hayes, and now we find him in round 19. So he dealt with the wrist injury all of last year. Hopefully, if he can get that behind him, stay healthy, we'll see what he could do. Because I think it was the first 2 or 3 games, he hit a home run against the Cubs, and we're like, damn, this is happening, right? Like Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to be awesome. And then, unfortunately, he dealt with that wrist injury for most of the season. After Ke'Bryan Hayes goes Ryan McMahon, Julio Rodriguez, one of the top prospects in the game, and then Dinelson Lamet. We're not really sure what the role is going to be for Lamet yet. He could be the closer for the Padres. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility here. And speaking of closers, I need another relief pitcher. So I'm just going to take my top ranked guy. And that is Mark Melancon. One of these years, it's all going to fall apart for Mark Melancon. It could be this year, especially like on the Arizona Diamondbacks. I looked this up the other day. They had the second fewest save opportunities in baseball and the fewest converted saves in baseball last season. So I think that's part of the reason why they signed Mark Melancon. Because
that's not good.
Yeah, they want to help their bullpen, but yeah, I don't expect the Diamondbacks to be a very good team. So, save opportunities are going to be very few and far between, which, again, like I waited this long. I know what I'm getting myself into. My relief position is not going to be very good at this point. Alrighty, we are here in round 19. We have 109 people, 112 people watching, 83 likes. Help us out. Let's get there. We've got 17 more likes. That means at least some of you watching this have not liked the video yet here on YouTube. So hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. And if you're just passing through for the first time, welcome. We appreciate you coming to hang out here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Every time we go live, you'll get notified. Typically, Sunday through Thursday nights, we go live here on the channel and we do our full-length podcast here. We usually do one of these mock drafts once per week as well. So you can be part of all the content that we do here at Fantasy Baseball Today. So subscribe and like this video if you haven't already. We're up to 90. Let's see if we can get to 100 by the end of the stream. After I selected Melancon, Keibert Ruiz goes, who, you know what, George, if you wound up with Keibert Ruiz, I was going to say, man, this is a really good value at this point. I do like Keibert Ruiz. Jameson Tyone goes, O'Neal Cruz, another prospect, and Scotty, you are back on the clock.
So I'm going to argue the opposite side from what you guys just, what you guys just did regarding Luke Voigt. who, of course, is one of my favorite sleepers this year. Given the current situation for the Yankees, he is in line to be the starting first baseman. And he's a guy they were happy to have there since midway through 2018, where he, during that time, OPS over 900, homered at a pace better than Matt Olson. If he is the starting first baseman for the Yankees, he has top 5 potential. And I need potential right now, Maybe they'll bring in somebody else, whatever. It's round 19. And even if they do bring in somebody else, they could trade him to somebody who could use him more, as you guys mentioned.
The problem with Voit is even if they don't bring in somebody else, he's not guaranteed to play first base. They're going to bring in a shortstop because they don't want Torres playing there. So Torres has to play second. Urshela is playing third. Whoever that somebody is playing short.
Moves to first?
Then LeMahieu has to play first. Yeah, that's the issue there. I understand LeMahieu will play some third base too, because I don't think Gio is playing anywhere near 162.
You say he's a bad defender first, and you're right, but
trash can.
Trash can.
You can put a scarecrow there; it'd be better.
Oh, Scott, you just got auto drafted.
No, that's
Dansby
fine.
Swanson.
It's Dansby Swanson. That's fine.
Okay.
He lasted a long time. Like I said, they were happy to have him as their first baseman, going back to when they acquired him from the Cardinals late in 2018. The only time they really wavered on that was when Voit was hurt last year and they were able to acquire Anthony Rizzo. And again, performance-wise, Voit has done nothing to lose the job. So, you guys obviously are more plugged into the Yankees than I am. But just as things currently stand, knowing how good Voit has been in the very recent past, I'm pick 227. I'm happy to take a flyer on him. If they acquire Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman or whatever. Yeah. I just think the risk reward definitely stacks in rewards favor.
Yeah, for sure. And like when we were talking about him, I think more so from just like a pure baseball perspective that he's not a good defender. So I think that's why the Yankees are looking at bringing in a different first baseman. If Luke Voit goes into the season as the starter, this is a slam dunk pick. He should be, if we get to opening day and he's their starting first baseman, then he should be a top 150 pick, maybe top 120, something like that. And you're getting him here outside of the top 200. The problem is he's going to be somewhere else. I don't think that he's going to be on the Yankees. Like, is there a scenario where he's just a bench player for the Yankees? I don't think that happens. I think he's
with the Yankees, Frank. The worst case scenario would be that he plays about 120 games because he'll play some first, he'll DH some, and that means Stanton has to be in the outfield some. That's why the Yankees need Stanton to play the outfield for Luke Voit. But I kind of agree with you. Cashman's got to be doing everything he possibly can to trade this man, right? And get some value, get another pitcher or maybe a shortstop, whatever it might be. So I think that once again, though, if he's on the Yankees, assuming everybody's healthy, worst case scenario is probably 120 games.
Yeah. And look, DH in the National League too. We've mentioned multiple times now. Well, George has, trash can at first base. This guy probably needs to be a DH somewhere. So the National
Trade him to the Brewers.
Oh, I think he was actually, I think there was some kind of rumor there too. So that would be fantastic. Maybe the Yankees get like a bullpen arm for Luke Voit, something like that. But I think he winds up somewhere. Oakland as part of a Matt Olson trade, some prospects you throw in there as well. Or maybe, someone like the Milwaukee Brewers. After, let's catch people up. Scott, you took Dansby Swanson. We see Garrett Whitlock go. Brendan Rodgers, Scott Barlow. I took Yuli Gurriel, who he's older, but man, he was a standout at this position in this format last year. Charlie Blackmon, Yadier Molina, Eric Lauer goes. George, you select Corey Knebel, who looks like he will be the closer for the Phillies as of now, unless they trade for Craig Kimbrell. And a prospect, starting pitcher for the Reds, Hunter Green, goes off the board as well. All right. George, Corey Knebel. What do you think about Corey Knebel? Do you think he starts the season as the closer for the Phillies?
I do. And you're right. Kimbrell, I imagine, would be an option there. But I think the reason they signed him was, once again, for him to be the closer over Ian Kennedy. He was an ace closer would be right at one time before he hurt the arm, right? And then he became a middle reliever. And Philadelphia's always looking for bullpen help, right? It's been their Achilles heel for a couple of years now. Isn't it the second to last round? I understand he may not finish the season as the closer, but out of the 30 teams in the Major League Baseball, half won't have the same closer if they start the season with. That's just the way the game is played here. That's why if you want, I know plenty of people, we all know in fantasy that, I'm not drafting any closers, and I'll figure it out during the season. And I understand that too. I personally never do that, but I get it.
All right. Well, let's see what catcher you select, George, because unfortunately for you, you have to draft a catcher, and it's the only.
But I don't mind. Scott said it earlier. I have 4 catchers. I'll live with any one of these guys. That's why in a 1-catcher league, I'll just wait forever. I don't care. I'm going to go with the upside guy, and I'm going to take Joey Bart out of San Fran. Once again, at one time a top prospect for them. We'll see how he does. But there were 3 other guys where I would just once again flipped the coin and grabbed any one of them. I won't name names, but I said I don't care about the position.
Go ahead and name names. It's the end of the draft.
McCann of the Mets, he could be in for a bounce back season. I think he's one of those guys I mentioned earlier. That change of league may take a little while to get accustomed there, and he's got to really be. It's more important for him to get that pitching staff underway here. I like McCann. Christian Vasquez would have been just a solid guy, but a solid guy. I think Garver as well for some power. I would have been happy with any one of those 3.
Yeah, especially Garver. I mean, you tell me that I could have got Mitch Garver in round 21 versus wherever I took Wilson Contreras. I still like the Contreras pick, but it's great value at this point. All right, so let's see. My last pick, I don't know who's somebody fun that we could select here. Fun.
I took all the fun guys already.
Yeah, that's true, Scott.
Sorry,
you took some fun guys. Connor Joe. Let's go with Connor Joe. He could be a point.
That is a fun guy.
Yeah. So we'll go with Connor Joe. He was leading off for the Rockies last year. Strong plate discipline. Should hit for some batting average as well. And I think if he plays every day for the Rockies, he could be really good in this format. So end the draft there with 1 Connor Joe. Who else went in this round? Patrick Corbin, the ghost of Patrick Corbin. Scott, I don't know that we've said his name this entire offseason, and rightfully so. But Patrick Corbin, another one of those once a top 50 player being drafted, now down at pick 246. And unfortunately, he deserves to be there. Darren Ruff went. Taylor Rogers looks like he will be the closer for the Twins to start the season unless they either sign or trade for somebody as well. Ian Happ goes off the board. Another prospect here, outfielder for the Tigers, Riley Green. And then Brandon Belt and Scotty, you are up with your last pick.
And I ended up treating third base like George treated catcher. The last pick is going to be my starting third baseman. And honestly, I think I could do a lot worse. I'm going Eduardo Escobar here.
Eduardo Escobar, who I believe averaged something like 2.9 fantasy points per game last year.
2.84.
Okay.
Which is the same as Josh Donaldson.
All right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
This is his better format too. He typically hits a lot of doubles, solid plate discipline, should hit 20 plus home runs. I think, maybe he'll rest once per week with the Mets. He's getting up there in age a little bit, but when he plays, I think he'll be a solid player.
And you got to trust me when I say, since, I think he's more a keep your head above water guy than like a championship caliber third baseman for this format. So I'm going to have a quick trigger when we hear of Josh Young of the Rangers or Jose Miranda of the Twins getting called up. I may even try to preempt that if they get off to a hot start in the minors, because those are the 2 that I think could get called up and become impact players at the position right away.
All right, we did it. We got to 100 likes. We have 101 total. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who is watching us for hitting that thumbs up button. Anyone who watching this on demand, make sure to like the video as well. I want to thank our buddy here, George Kurtz, for helping us along on the mock draft. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at George Kurtz. If you're watching, you see how to spell the last name there, Kurtz, George Kurtz. Follow him on Twitter. Let's quickly run through your team, George, and just quickly evaluate it, how you did here. In the infield, Joey Bart, Jared Walsh, Jazz Chisholm, Alex Bregman, and Xander Bogaerts. In the outfield, you have Michael Brantley, Fernando Tatis, Randy Arozarena, Dylan Carlson at your utility. And then for pitchers, we see Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson, Shane Bieber, Trevor Rogers, Freddie Peralta, and your closers are Corey Knebel and Edwin Diaz. How would you grade your performance today, George?
I'd probably give myself a B. I mean, it's the way most of my teams seem to work out. I think it's deep more than top heavy or anything like that. I need Tatis. Obviously, we all need to stay healthy. I need Tatis to stay healthy there. I did focus more on pitching than I normally would because of the format here. I generally don't have an outfield that's like this. I generally believe in stronger outfields because we have so many of them. And once again, five outfield leagues, and the waiver wire could be a little thin here, but in this league, not so much with only 3. So I left that position alone. If I was playing out this league, I would just want my team to stay healthy. I think I would compete, and my fortune would depend on the moves I made during the season.
All right, Scotty, would you like to quickly evaluate your team here? I know you drafted a bunch of starting pitchers. Salvador Perez early, obviously. You took Freddie Freeman, and then you waited. You waited on a bunch of your hitters.
Well, yeah, I did get Marcus Semien too at a discount. So those are my big 3 hitters. Tim Anderson in round 10 was my 4th hitter. I'll give myself a B as well. I think I got a little too panicky at starting pitcher with that run of Blake Snell, Clayton Kershaw, Pablo Lopez. In what rounds were those? Like 6, 7, and 8, maybe. Maybe Lopez was a little later than the other 2. But if I as much confidence as I have or confidence isn't the right word, but as much as I like the value of Zach Greinke and Kyle Hendricks, if I can pencil them in there on my bench, maybe I don't need to go as heavy there, and I could have taken care of some of my hitting needs, third base and outfield. I mean, those were the positions where I really went the weakest. But having said that, if you just consider like the name value of the players in my starting lineup, my outfield is Mitch Haniger, Jared Kelnick, Marcell Ozuna. I mean, and I got Luke Voigt there in my utility spot. Ozuna and Voigt were both top 5 round picks last year, and I'm not saying they deserve to be now, but if you just look at it from the perspective of upside and understand that this is a shallow league with a robust waiver wire, I think it could work out. I don't think it has to work out is the thing. But if it does work out, obviously I'll be in really good shape with the kind of pitching depth that I have. Yeah.
And that's the other side of the coin too. When drafting pitching early in this format, another reason why you might want to is because this is a shallower league. So the waiver wire should be plentiful, as Scott mentioned. So, maybe you don't find that breakout hitter per se. It's pretty hard to find that player or those players year over year. But you could stream the position. You could find, hitters going to Coors Field or just going up against like Orioles pitchers for some reason. You could do that. You could do that in this format. So that's just another reason why you might want to lean into starting pitchers and then pick up some hitters and guys to stream later on in the year. I'll quickly run through here. I really love the lineup for this team. I think the pitching could be better. Wilson Contreras, Vladimir Guerrero, Whit Merrifield, Nolan Arenado, Willy Adames. The 3 outfielders, JD Martinez, Springer, Kyle Schwarber, I think all standouts in this format. Nelson Cruz, can he stay healthy? Is he going to play another year? That's probably the pick that I regret most. I think I should have took a starting pitcher where I took Nelson Cruz. But the pitching is good. Zach Wheeler, Sandy Alcantara, Chris Sale is my 3. Shane McClanahan, who I love as a breakout, as my 4. And then my 5 is Patrick Sandoval. And, I'll play the matchups with Cobb and Alex Wood and Carlos Carrasco as well. Closers, not great. They're fine. We'll figure it out throughout the course of the season. Maybe I find a spark that I want to pick up as well. I give myself a B+, just slightly better than you guys. Sorry, I had to do it. Make sure you follow George again on Twitter. George, we really appreciate you hanging out. 2 hours. We kept you for a long time. I appreciate it, buddy.
No problem. Anytime. Drafting's always fun.
Yeah, of course. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of drafting while we wait for the season to start up here. For George and Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for watching this special edition of Fantasy Baseball Today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.